30 if you'd like to fire. Okay, it being 5:30, I call this meeting of the Shelburne Select Board on September 23rd to order. We'll begin with the acceptance of minutes. Tricia, have you had time to review the minutes and made your changes, if any? You are muted. You're muted. There you go.
I gotcha. Thank you. Sorry about that. You know, if we all had a nickel for every time we had to say you're on mute, we'd be rich. So I had a question about that. So some of the things, if we don't vote on something, does it just not get like we talked about it and everybody agreed? Or it just says like we talked about it. So I was looking about the issue regarding the ICS training, for example. I thought it was maybe because we hadn't voted. That was all.
You did
So
not, yes. You mean that it wasn't mentioned in the minutes?
that's right. That it
Okay.
was just mentioned sort of, we said this, we said that, but not that there was.
That's pretty common for a subject that pops up and is briefly discussed.
Yep. So that's what I thought. So I'm good then. Thank you.
Andrew?
Oh, well, just to follow up on that, I think the conclusion of that from the Terry's follow-up email was that we were recommending to Tom that we not pursue.
Andrew, that's coming up on our agenda tonight later.
Oh, okay. I thought you were looking for some resolution of that, but it sounds like we are going to do that tonight. So
I think so.
All right.
Somewhere on
And
this
actually,
list.
sorry, I misspoke that there was some typo of Melissa Ely. It says regarding Moonlight Magic Yvette instead of event. Sorry, I forgot about that.
You did that one with Terry already?
No, I just saw it.
Okay. Well, if you didn't do them, then you're the one that gets all the punctuation things. I'll make one more for Terry under Department of Energy Resources, Green Communities Grant. We got $27.55. Change the period to a comma. And that's all I saw beyond the event one too. Any others from you, Drew?
I'll move that we accept the minutes with those corrections.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. We'll put it to a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
And Tricia?
Aye.
And I am aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. Department liaison reports. Andrew, would you like to start tonight?
Sure. Yeah, I did meet with Jeff. Is Jeff planning to attend this evening? Do you know, or
which Jeff?
Jeff Johnston.
No, he's not planning on attending this evening.
Okay, I didn't want to steal his thunder if he was, but anyway, so I have met with Jeff. We have a regular weekly check-in or so on Friday or Mondays, and he's making great progress as our new super. He's doing a lot. He reports that the paving is complete on Cooper Lane, Brook Road, Wilson Graves, and Fisk Mill. So we've got a lot of new resurfacing in town. He will be attending the Concom meeting tomorrow night at 7 to review the RDAs and the Department of Agriculture's waiver. Mark Stinson at the DEP will attend that meeting and hopefully help the Concom clarify how they want to proceed on those various approaches to the knotweed issue. So we'll see how that turns out. On Old Greenfield Road, Warner Brothers is doing subdrain work between the Bragdons and the Wilsons, and will be moving on tomorrow to the farther down the road. He is planning to hold a site meeting that will be down at the intersection of Stoddard Road. I don't have a date for that yet, but he'll notify us when he's ready to do that.
Andrew, that's Thursday.
Okay. Do we have a date and time for that?
I believe I sent it to you. I believe it's 3 o'clock.
Okay.
You actually confirmed that.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go then. Let me just see if I put it in my book. Yes, okay, sorry, I didn't. So Thursday at 3, there will be a site meeting for that project. And for anybody who wants to attend. The solar panels have been delivered and are in one of the bays of our new pole barn awaiting Eversource, I guess. PV Squared is ready to put them up when they get the permitting go ahead. Warner Brothers also reports they're doing a lot of ledge work in the old Greenfield Road project. One of the items that was not able to be included in that project is a box culvert repair that's needed on Stoddard Road, just off of Bardwell Ferry. The estimate on that is about $300,000. It's not, I don't believe it's in imminent danger of road closure, but it is a project that needs doing. So he will, Jeff will be sort of scoping that out as monies become available. The project that is more urgent is the bridge closure at 80 Bardwell Ferry Road. Jeff is pursuing that with alacrity. We have Gill Engineering on board with that project. And we have, I believe we have a contract that we've awarded them for $20,000 to do the engineering work to allow us to put our temporary bridge in place over that failed bridge so that the residents can have more speedy ingress and egress and emergency service access. I don't have an exact timeline on when we may expect that to get the go-ahead, but they are working on it, and we'll submit it to DOT ASAP. So I'll keep you updated on when that goes forward. But we have a replacement or a temporary bridge, and we just need to have the engineering work approved in order to install it. And Jeff is starting to turn the wheels on a small bridge grant proposal for the replacement of that bridge. I think if you can apply for up to $500,000 in the small bridge program. So we'll see how that takes shape, but that's sort of the second step once we address the more immediate access needs. And other than that, he is, his crew is kind of doing general tune-ups to prepare for plowing season and get things in shape. One thing that may come up later on when we talk about the transfer station, I just wanted to drop in all of your hoppers, is that Jeff floated a sort of question or idea, which was asking whether we had ever considered using or partnering with the Coleraine transfer station, which is just up the road on 112 and on the other side of the river there. It's just across the town line, about a quarter mile from I think maybe a half mile from our current transfer station. I think the reason he mentioned it is that Coleraine has permitting in place to offer more services than we currently offer in terms of disposal of hazardous materials and other things. I said I didn't have any knowledge of us ever having considered that. Terry, you might know more about that. And I don't know how long our lease runs with Charlemont. So anyway, just thought I would drop that in the hopper if we're thinking about the future possibilities at the transfer station.
Just
Yeah.
a quick comment, if
Go
I
ahead,
may.
go ahead, Terry.
Coleraine is a super site that is open to all residents of Franklin County for disposal of hazardous materials. They have
okay,
a fee
so
schedule, much like the city of Greenfield does, and anyone can use it for that purpose.
I see. So we don't have to be a partner with them or whatever
No, we
to.
do not.
Okay, that's good to know. Only other update I have is that I did submit 2 pre-applications to the CPA committee for our housing pre-development site work. So those proposals are in their hands, and we'll see what they say. I don't have any more to report on that yet. But I think I did share the pre-applications with you all, so you should have them. That's all I got.
Great. Tricia, we're like 3 minutes away from our first appointment. Would you like to start and then pick up after that?
Sure. So Joe is busy getting ready for the upcoming election. I think you just sent something a few minutes ago, right? If I'm not mistaken, about those dates. So we can talk about that later. He's still learning to work the new vital statistics system from the state. It's almost 100% a go. And we also talked about his public information officer duties with emergency management, and we're working on that a little bit. Angel and I talked about the next tax bills that are going out and what we still had as delinquencies. So she sent out a second friendly reminder to people who haven't paid their taxes yet. There were about 100 bills, including the fire district ones. And we're hoping we'll have a 50% success rate on those like we did on the first mailing. It's about $140,000 in arrears, so it would be really great to get at least half of that or even some of it. And or get people on a plan if they need one. We thought this would be a good time to do it since the next tax bills are coming due on November 1st. She submitted a nice article to the Two Town News about the tax deadline, and we added a graphic for that too, which I also provided to her if she wants to put it on the town website, just as a reminder that taxes are due on November 1st. If you want to, I also happened to see Sylvia Smith today at a different function, and she mentioned that the new regional board for the Board of Managers for the Senior Center doesn't see a need for a joint select board meeting with the 3 select boards in question because everybody found everything really straightforward in their transition plan and everything else. So she asked if I could pass that along today. I know that that was sort of an outstanding thing from last time. I'll save the emergency management stuff until later because it's more than 1 minute.
Terrific. I think we can
Thank
start
you.
a minute early for Fred Vore.
Well, actually, if you've got a minute, let me just jump in on that tax question, Tricia, that I thought I had an idea that might make a good Two-Town News story if Angel is willing to put the information together. But it struck me that I don't have an objection to people, spreading out their tax payments and coming in when they can. But when they get to the point where they're costing themselves and the town money to post lien notices and stuff like that, it just seems foolish to drag it out that far unless they really can't pay, in which case you have to go through that whole process and do a taking and all. But if they can pay and they're just really stretching it out, they should know what the costs are, you know, and that it's not helpful to the town to, you know, be spending a lot of money chasing them around. So it would be, I think it would be useful to put that information out there, if Angel's willing to do that.
So
Yeah,
no,
that's great. I'll talk to her about that. We'll see if we can get something in for November.
okay, it being
Thank
time
you.
for our first appointment, Fred Vore is with us. I see he is on. He is, if I'm not mistaken, Chair of the Board of Health and has come to us tonight with a request for the location of an outdoor box. You have the floor, sir. And I saw him a minute ago. Is he gone?
I don't know who's 588-1270.
His
I'm
name
going
was,
to jump in on 588-1270. This is Maureen O'Reilly from the Cooperative Public Health Service. I am I'm outside of a library and the internet isn't working, so I dialed in. So I can't see the screen. I'm happy to start, but I also figured that Fritz might want to jump in if he's there, and I don't know. I can't tell if he's there or
back.
not.
He's
Here he
back on.
is.
Zach, okay.
I just got on. Thank you.
Okay. You have the floor, sir.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Maureen brought up the subject, and it was we've discussed it before, which is wonderful about getting the naloxone more available to the public. We do have naloxone boxes, and for those who are unfamiliar, naloxone is Narcan, and it's the stuff that reverses an opioid overdose. It does it very quickly. It blocks the effect of opiates and fentanyl and heroin on its receptors, and the person who is overdosed wakes up in a hurry, usually agitated and annoyed that he got disrupted, but it saves a lot of lives. In the world I live in, which is jails and prisons, we use it quite a little bit. It's very effective and very safe and doesn't have any untoward problems that I know of. We do have Narcan in the town hall, unfortunately, which is wonderful, but unfortunately, it's only available when the town hall is open. And this program allows us to put some boxes, such as they have down at River Valley Market and some of the food markets, in a box, which is easily opened. It's labeled, and it includes instructions on how to use it. And you can take a little box of Narcan out of there. It's administered nasally. You just spray it in the nose. There is training instructions on the box. And I think it really would be wonderful to pursue this. Many places have had great success with, many towns have had great success with the police and fire and EMSs carrying Narcan with them. When an inmate is released from any of our jails in Maine, where I work, they are given Narcan in a little box, which has that and instruction has successfully reduced the overdose, the post-release overdose death, which was pretty prominent, pretty frequent, by almost 50%. So it's good to have around. The box is about, I don't know, Maureen, you can correct me, it's about 10 by 12 inches or 18 inches and sits on the side of a building. And we're thinking of maybe getting one on the information booth or on the Shelburne Firehouse. If anyone has any questions, let me know.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Fritz. And let me just add a little bit more context to that wonderful description. Okay. So, like Fritz said, that there are these outdoor boxes that are basically precipitation resistant, which is very great in New England. And I think you guys all know about the opioid settlement money. Well, the CPHS was able to use a different set of grant funding to purchase a number of these cabinets. And it's not just an effort that is hopefully happening in Shelburne, but this has been offered to all the 15 member towns in the district. Monroe already has one up. Charlemont has one up. Colerain's going to be putting some up. Gill has one up. So it's kind of this increasing access throughout the county outside of our population centers, because in our population centers, that is where Tapestry can work and Opioid Task Force can work. So this is kind of working towards this. It's actually a federally recognized evidence-based strategy that having increased access to naloxone reduces the number of opiate overdose deaths. And I will kind of quote or paraphrase one of the Colerain Board of Health members when we were talking at their Board of Health and Select Board meeting. She says, I work in a provider's office and I really wish that any single time anyone was prescribed an opiate, they had this with them as well, because it can be somebody who is known to use drugs, but it can also be a child or a curious teen that gets into someone's medicine cabinet. It could also be somebody who is adjusting to a newer medication, perhaps later in life, and doesn't remember what they took or how much they took. So having this around when there are opioids in the house is another way that can be really helpful in case there's an emergency. And so we're excited that this is an evidence-based strategy and implementation that can be done without using those opiate settlement funds, and those can be used in a different way to continue to help the community. And as Fritz pointed out, we were talking about some of the brainstorming different places it could be at the Board of Health meeting. And one of the good and interesting things is, of course, we have to sometimes work in concert with Buckland. And they also have an indoor box in their town hall, just like Shelburne, but that's also somewhat limited in its use. And so we were kind of hoping in coordinating to have one on the Shelburne side in the village and one on the Buckland side in the village to kind of have walkability and access, and for both towns to have one farther away, kind of outside of the village, so that things can be accessed as well. Part of this is having visibility to say, hey, there you can have get naloxone here, whether or not you need it, and it's around. And we're also looking at a couple of other places where maybe it can be available and it could be a little bit more private to get it. So a place like the information center would be great for visibility, and it would be great for somebody who felt confident to go and grab some naloxone to take with them. And another option, as Fritz mentioned, kind of like the the fire department, could be a place where you could go and take something if you felt a little bit more embarrassed or you didn't want to be seen in public grabbing naloxone. So,
Maureen, I think both of those make total sense. Fred, has your board voted to actually formally request those locations, or what's the process?
Yes, we did. We did, and Maureen's description is much more elegant than mine. But I did think that two things. One is it's not just for people who are substance use opioid addicts, to use a common phrase. It's for friends and parents and those who might know someone who is suffering from opiate addiction. I have to tell you this story quickly. I had an inmate in the jail that I'm involved with, one of them, who said to us, I am a fentanyl addict, but nobody knows that at all except my dealer and myself. No one on the planet, as far as I know, knows that. He was a very responsible local businessman, and he overdosed at home, and his mother saved his life with a Narcan that he was given when he left the jail. And she was a nurse, and she said, I never told him, but I knew. So I mean, that's one story out of millions, but it's a life-saving, simple life-saving procedure. And I think that we should make it as available as much as we can. It also speaks to the fact that we are in a huge public health opioid epidemic that is persistent. It doesn't go away. Why it doesn't go away is a whole other world of conjecture, but it doesn't go away. And I think just having boxes around by itself would advertise the fact that we are suffering this epidemic. And I'll stop prattling, but I hope the board loves this idea.
Sounds great to me. You said they're roughly 10 by 10. They're fairly small. You have two available to do the two locations.
Maureen knows that.
Yes, we do. They're a little bit bigger. I would say, I think like, I'm really bad at this, but maybe like 10 by 12 or 10 by 18 might be a little bit
Yeah,
more
right.
realistic. We have two. They're actually sitting at 12 Olive Street in Greenfield right now. I think what we'd be asking here is the Board of Health at their last meeting voted to support those locations and bring them up to the Select Board. So if the Select Board, also would like to support those locations, that would be great. And I think our next step, if that's kind of all supported all around, we can provide the boxes to whomever would put those up. So if that would be somebody from the DPW who puts things on town buildings, or I'm just thinking of the fire garage, like maybe someone there would do it. We would just take that next step and work to get them out.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I don't know that the Select Board has the ability to approve it on the Shelburne Fire District Board. We may or may not, but what we certainly could do is, if the board, fellow board members agreed, it would be to consider a motion to support the Narcan boxes in those two locations and let it play out from there. Any thoughts? Tricia, you had your hand?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so is it only 2 boxes that you have? Because it sounded like you might have more, Maureen.
We have ordered enough for 2 for every town. There is a possibility that we can have some more funding to purchase more as needed. And I think the other case with some smaller towns, that they might only have like a place to put it in one location or something like that. So there could be another one available throughout the district. But I think right now we're looking at 2.
2 for sure.
Okay,
So what's your
2
pleasure?
for Shelburne, yeah, yes.
great. So I would make a motion if the floor is available for that.
Go.
I move that we accept the offer to put up 2 outdoor naloxone boxes in places where they are readily accessible and the Board of Health determines as appropriate.
Is there a second? Andrew, you might be muted as well.
I have a few questions before I second that motion. One is, Fritz, have you or Maureen actually approached the fire department or the Village Information Center about their willingness to host these boxes?
I apologize, I have not. I haven't been by the information place when they were open, but I only started looking at these 2 places a week or so ago, but I'm happy to go down and approach them, or perhaps the board could give me a contact person that I can call and
Well,
discuss.
Should we table this until he comes back with the
Well,
information?
Tom Massa would be the person to approach at the information center, and the fire chief at the fire station.
Okay.
I guess I would feel more comfortable getting them on board before we can certainly say as a board that we support the availability, the outdoor availability of Narcan. But I would just feel less good about, even though I think Rick rightly pointed out that we may not have jurisdiction over the physical space of the fire district, which is a separate body, and
Motion didn't specify location. It just that we are in support of the 2 boxes.
No,
and
if that's all you're looking for is for us to say we support outdoor use of Narcan or availability of Narcan, that's one thing. But if you want the board to support the placement at particular locations, it's probably useful to get the endorsement of those locations, before we take that step.
I would agree completely. Let's deal with the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Is your motion, just to clarify it again, that we support the outdoor availability of Narcan in Shelburne?
Yeah, to make 2 outdoor naloxone boxes available at the locations that the health department or the public health with FERCog determine as appropriate. That way, they have authority to go ahead and talk to the people and say the select board has agreed to allow us to put naloxone boxes up, and they have to do all the legwork to find those places and engage in those agreements. So as long as we approve that they can do that, I think they can move forward and go ahead and place them as long as the folks on the other end
Thank you.
do it. That's why I made the motion the way I did.
Okay, because I mean, technically, we do have the ability to say you can put a box at the village info session. That's a town building that the select board actually does have some say-so over, though we do lease it to the information center. So maybe they, I don't know, Terry might know better what the technicalities are of whether we can impose that on them or if that's something they need to agree to. But my preference would be to have them say yes to it themselves, So yeah, I'll go ahead and second the motion to, essentially authorize the Board of Health to pursue where to put these things. I mean, the library might be another location you might want to explore. Since Lori's here, you can engage her directly in that conversation.
Let's leave it up to the Board of Health to pursue that. We're already a little late for our next appointment. So
Yeah.
let's move the motion and take a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
And Tricia?
Aye.
I'm an aye. The motion passes unanimously. Fred and Maureen, is it? Yes, Maureen, you may go ahead and pursue locations. And if you find a location that needs our approval, bring it back to us.
Thank you. I'll get
Will
busy.
do. Thank you for that. And
May
we
I
have
say-
brought both. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for your work to help us with the opioid epidemic and keep people alive. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. We'll get there.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Fritz, while you're here, just out of curiosity. I mean, this hopefully more accessible availability of naloxone, will that mean that you expect more people to be taking it either sort of preemptively to have some available if they need it, or in the event of an emergency, they run down and grab some and bring it back? But in either case, it means you might be distributing more naloxone. Do you have the budget to do that?
I'll jump in really quickly. I know we're tight on time. So the nursing program that supports the Board of Health is part of the state's community naloxone program. We have an endless free supply of naloxone. And so how these are placed around the community and these boxes, the cabinets, and also kind of how an overdose happens very quickly, the expectation is that this would be taken to go because it's unlikely that somebody might be using drugs behind Guild Town Hall or behind Charlemont Town Hall, because that's not a known hotspot. So that is kind of the purpose of this initiative, is to have naloxone that can be taken to go. And we have hosts that would help restock the cabinets as well with the free supply of naloxone.
Thanks,
Perfect.
that's helpful information. Thank you.
So much.
Perfect.
Okay, our next appointment time has come and gone a bit. Arms Library Board regarding the request to end the 50-year lease agreement for the building. Dan Alden, understand, isn't going to be here, who is going to speak in his absence. And you would be John Corman. Yes,
Yep.
sir. Have at it.
Well, we are requesting an end to the lease, given that the reason for us taking on the lease was to get the money from the state to do the renovation. and the 5-year period for us to hold that has expired. We would like our director of library, Lori, to get back to paying more attention to customers and books and less attention to maintenance issues. So we'd like to rescind the lease and go back to where we were 5 years ago.
So as I read the lease, I couldn't find anything other than the 8.1, which I think was Mr. Alden pointed out, that there can be changes to the lease. I didn't see anywhere about procedures in actually terminating the lease, but that might take legal counsel and not just someone like myself off the street. I did notice at the end of the lease, it talks about the tax credits and so on, and using any money after the reconstruction to fund maintenance and operating expenses of the library. It's a long, I don't know, 9-page document. I have a couple questions. I'll start and then I'll ask my fellow select board members if they have others. It would seem, since you needed this document to get that particular grant or tax credit, and you're going for grants all the time, including a elevator one, I think you're looking at grant proposals for that you may still need a document like this, maybe not as in depth. It doesn't seem to me that you would want to get rid of that, and that it might make more sense to look at amending, which is allowed in the lease, portions that you think you'd like to see go away. That's just my personal opinion. It seems that to have an association have control of a town building, or rather a building that we don't have any agreement for who takes care of what, seems imprudent to me. So that was just my first take on this. I was surprised to see the request to actually terminate it as opposed to amend it. Tricia, any comments?
Rick, I think that is an outstanding way to think about this. I hadn't considered that. And now that you've mentioned it, I think that maybe so your hands aren't tied for future funding possibilities. If it works well that the Arms Library Association is actually considered the owner of the building under this lease, and really the problem that you're trying to address is that Lori and the library staff are spending too much time doing things other than library things, i.e. maintenance or paying other bills, that maybe that's the only part of the lease that needs to be amended. Are we hitting a tiny nail with a sledgehammer here? Or, you know, do we need to be a little bit more prescriptive in how to adjust this lease? Because as far as I understand under 8.1, as long as all the parties agree, then we can make amendments to this lease. And I think Rick might have a good point. Would we be shooting ourselves in the foot for future opportunities for funding by making it a town property? And I wasn't here for the history of it. That was actually my first question, was what was the history on all of this prior to 2019 that resulted in this transfer of property for this grant? And you guys deal with the grants all the time, so maybe you know something and can answer that question. So I share that question. And then my second question is what the Finance Committee thinks, or what advice that they've provided regarding now where the funds are coming to pay for all this. And I don't know, is the town responsible for the costs now and you just have to sort of do some accounting magic? Is there money available, and can we do this if we take the library back on as a full-fledged town property without the Arms Association being involved?
Andrew, I'll let you chime in and then we'll hear from John.
Well, just to answer, offer my answers to Tricia's questions, I would agree with John that the lease was undertaken for a specific purpose, which was to secure $250,000 in historic tax credits for the capital renovations of the library, and we have achieved that goal. We've spent the money. We've done the time period needed for the lease to be in place. So I think with town council review, we could, in theory, discontinue the lease and say we achieved our purpose. I think Rick does raise an interesting point of whether maintaining the lease in place would give the library access to other funds as the nonprofit steward of the library. Could pursue other grants. I think that's worth looking into as a possibility. I think one of the reasons, and this goes to your other point, Tricia, about who's responsible for maintenance, is that's a question that has come primarily from the finance committee, sort of saying, well, if the library owns this, then they should be responsible for the maintenance and blah, blah, blah. To me, that is a kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other kind of perspective, which is that if you pursue that argument, the library simply puts those maintenance costs into its budget and presents them to the town at town meeting. And so whether those maintenance costs belong to the library or to the town, in my view, is immaterial, because the town is going to pay those costs one way or the other. And I think there are folks on the finance committee who have a different take on that they would somehow like the library to absorb some more of those costs, perhaps to pass some of them along to Buckland in their view. I think that's partly why the library is bringing this forward, is to not have to have those conversations every year. But in my mind, they're sort of moot questions that I think we, as the owners of the building, leased or not, are still responsible for those costs. Terry can offer her own take on what she thinks of that, but that's sort of the backdrop to this lease question.
Mr. Corman?
Well, I'm not opposed to your idea, Rick, but I do kind of agree with Andrew. The town owns the building basically, and we took the lease on to get that money so that, the state could help us renovate the building. Otherwise, the town would have incurred a huge cost to, renovate the building. I didn't come on the board until after the renovation was finished, so I don't have all the ins and outs of that situation. Lori was involved with it, so I'll ask her to chime in. But I would say that I want to reiterate, it seems to me that the town maintains other buildings, and so the expertise of how to maintain buildings, who to contact, what contractors do what, is something that the town deals with all the time. Lori does not. She's done yeoman's work for 5 years, but I've seen her deal with these issues as they come up, and it's time consuming, frankly. And she's not a construction manager, a maintenance manager, whatever. She's a library director. And so I think that basically, not to demean her efforts, because she's done, as I said, a great job, but really it should be the town that is doing that work. And we'd simply like like to do that.
I think we get all that, but why would we bury the whole thing?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Say, I think all that's fairly well understood. My question is, why would we not have an official agreement between the town and yourself that address that issue in an amendment to it, or other issues you think it may need?
Yeah, if that's the way the select board wants to go and we can work that out, I think we're amenable to that. I simply, from my standpoint, and I think the rest of the library board, we would just like to free Lori's time up to do what she's paid to do, and give the maintenance issues back to the people that can do it very well and do it all the time.
So why don't you come back with a proposal of amendments that will get you where you want to be, and present that to us, and potentially preserve ownership that may get you grants down the road. You've had to do it once. I mean, no, you can't, nobody has a crystal ball, but it would seem
Yeah.
logical to me that it may give you a leg up in future grant requests, including things like the library elevator. So just my instinct is that, but I have two other members here. Tricia?
So I guess the other question I would have is, as sort of supplemental to what Rick just said, if you could also look at, like, well, if we were a town property, we could get, I mean, owned by the town, not leased out, we could get these 20 grants or something like this, or our hands are tied because we're in a lease agreement, or conversely, because we have this lease agreement and our quasi owners, we can access all this other set of funding. So to provide that whole picture, not just, let's see what, we really need to get off of Lori's plate, because I agree, you can't do all of those things and do them all well or whatever, although she does. Also, what are the costs and benefits of doing it one way or the other? And then come back. I agree. I think that would be the most, that would give us the most amount of information to make a really good decision here.
Andrew?
Yes, John, I have a slightly different perspective than you do about Lori's role in this. That from my perspective, the town has representatives essentially helping to steward all of its buildings. Terry is our eyes and ears for Memorial Hall, and to some extent all of the buildings, because she's our town administrator, but she's not a maintenance person per se. So we rely on John Walsh to give us feedback on the needs of the Cowell Gym. We rely on the Memorial Hall Association to give us feedback on the needs for the theater upstairs in Town Hall. We rely on Tom Massa to help us understand the needs at the Village Information Center, and Greg, to tell us about what's needed at the police station. So I don't see Lori's role in putting together a maintenance budget for the library going away if we get rid of the lease. She's still going to have to do that. The questions about who pays for what might become a little clearer if we didn't have a lease, and we would have fewer arguments with the finance committee every year about those kinds of questions. But in terms of Lori's role of being our eyes and ears of, is the heating system working? Does the elevator need fixing? Is something leaking? That's ongoing, and that will not go away in my view. Lori can give her perspective on that, but that's my take. And so I see the question being much more is, what is the lease doing for us? And is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Now that we have the opportunity to discontinue it, that's the question we should be asking, is the relationship clearer with the town with the lease in place or with the lease not in place? And kind of bring that back to the board and say, here's what we think. I personally think that the lease probably is not helping our clarity of relationship. The only question that Rick has raised is it still helpful in raising money for the library? I think that's worth some exploration. I don't know the answer to that, whether that it has any utility beyond the purpose for which it was originally created, which was to get that $250,000 from Mass Historic.
Well, I think we yeah, some good feedback.
Yeah, let me just say that I totally get what Andrew's saying, that Lori will still need to isolate maintenance issues, but she won't have to negotiate with vendors. And that's, to me, that's what I've seen while I've been on the board, that a lot of her time is spent running around finding vendors, negotiating with them. And Lori, if you want to jump in, please do. We're talking about you, and we haven't given you a chance to chime in.
I noticed that.
But before you do, Lori, I will get to you. Jeff, I see you are on. It's your appointment time. I think we're going to be able to deal with yours very shortly, so we'll take a few more minutes with Lori, okay? Okay. You're up, Lori.
Okay, I was just going to say that John is absolutely correct in that I do end up doing a lot of looking for vendors, resolving problems. And I think in my contract, one of my primary roles, excuse me, is to bring problems and issues to the building committee and the trustees. But I've tended to do a lot more than that. And it would be helpful to have more of that taken on by others, because I don't actually get everything done because of that.
Okay. Tricia?
Just one last thought about this. And thank you, Jeff, for your patience too, for allowing us to finish this discussion. We can always terminate the lease later. So we can try maybe, revising it so that it works better for the library, see how it goes. See if you can access more funding while you're still owners of the property, sort of, so to speak. And then if it's not working, then we can terminate the lease if we really find out that that's not going to work. But, carving out the part that isn't working for you makes a lot more sense, I think, for now. And then you can work out some other agreements, because it's just, we all have to agree. So let's come up with something.
Well, you can carve out, you can also add in,
Right.
amend means either way. Come back to us with some ideas and, we'll try and help you
Including the charging Buckland or something. I don't know, but something like that, right? You could do something like that to the lease.
It would be helpful to come back with a
That's an interesting concept, Tricia. we could talk another hour about that. Okay, I think we have the sense of the select board, and really what we were trying to do was to get that tonight. This wasn't something where we expected you guys to just lockstep and agree with us and say, yeah, it's terminated. We wanted to start the discussion and see where we go. And I think we've got some good ideas. We'll come back to you, and we'll let Jeff talk now.
Well, I would just say in closing, John and Lori, that it would be helpful to come back to the board if your goal is to move things off of Lori's plate regarding vendors and speccing out projects and things like that, is to say, who do you want to do that work? Because I don't know who's stepping forward to say, I'm jumping in there.
You almost implied that the town has people like that. We don't.
Right.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, that's another discussion. Maybe we should go offline and we'll talk a little bit more with maybe Andrew's on the Pratt committee. And we have a meeting coming up later this week. We can talk with him more about that because we just assumed that you guys did this all the time with all of your buildings. So we assumed that you had somebody that handles all that. So we'll let Jeff go. He's been very patient.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Take care.
Very much.
We have in the past talked about
you.
a buildings and maintenance position being added to the town. We've just never brought it through and taken it to town meeting and got it done. But so right now it's who can we ask to help us? So thanks for your understanding too.
Okay.
Mr.
Take care.
Buckner. Eversource streetlight buyout cost went down a little bit more since the temporary figures. I think that might have been the polls issue that John Walsh noticed. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been really happy with the result. Eversource came back. Originally, it was $14,500, and it's now down to $11,767.32. So we'll take that. It's about $2,700 savings. And so our committee actually met today and voted to move that forward to you guys to decide on signing the letter of approval to go forward with the purchase of the streetlights. And that's pretty much what we're asking from you for tonight is to approve that number. And John Walsh is on too. John, is there more? They just need to sign the letter, right? Correctly?
It's the letter of intent that we agreed to accept
Right.
that price, and then a contract will be drawn up and submitted back to the town supposedly within 30 days. And just to be clear, with this contract, we are now going to be buying 7 light poles that are at the intersections of Route 2 that are only light-only services. They don't.
Yeah, they're not full size poles. They're kind of reduced size poles because they're just all they have on them is the light, but they're.
So
we will,
we will own 5 or 7 of those new poles along Route 2.
I think it's only 5, but yeah.
I think their first quote was 5 that I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there's only 5.
Great. Well, town meeting approved this money already. I have any discussion before we make an official vote to sign those deals, Tricia?
Thank you very much for all your work on this. I know that you were very meticulous and involved the community, and that was all very important. You also saved some money. You saved some also light poles that some people wanted to keep. So I just want to thank you publicly for all your work to help do things great for the town. And I think I'm happy to move this forward.
Andrew?
Yeah, just to clarify that this is the first step, assuming we pass this motion to have the town take ownership of the lighting system and in preparation for converting it to LEDs.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is just another motion to say we would like to accept that price, and then Eversource will send us the paperwork that will be 30 pages long or whatever, and we'll have to have attorneys probably look at it. But at least it gets us that much closer, and that should be within 30 days or so. And actually, talking to RTE today, and they said that generally that happens maybe even in 2 weeks after you send that. So we'll start to at least see the paperwork, and then we have to just go back and forth on the paperwork. And but usually that goes pretty smooth because I mean they're drafting it up, so it's acceptable to them to start with. So yeah, that gets us moving because it's like we need this process. Until we own the lights, we can't do a thing as far as demoing it or anything or doing anything with them. So it's really up to having that purchased, and that we can't use the grant money from Green Communities for purchasing of the poles because the town will actually be owning it. So this is kind of a separate thing. So by buying this, but we will get some money back down the road from Mass Save and things, we hope, and that'll help cover the costs of this. So, or at least in part. So
We've already got another grant that's going to put a heck of a dent in the whole project as well. So
yeah, well, there's also the Green Communities grant will put about $48,000 savings on the whole project. So that's really great. So.
okay, looks like we need a motion.
I'll move. Oh, go ahead, Tricia.
I move to write the letter of intent or sign the letter of intent to buy the light poles on Route 2 for $11,767.32 from Eversource.
I'll
I-
second.
I think we may need a friendly amendment to that. You mentioned only the poles.
Right.
It's not just the
It's-
pole, it's all of the street lights in the entire town.
In the entire town, right?
Yes, so it's all the street lights and those 7 poles for
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
$11,767.32. With that friendly amendment, do you still second?
I second it.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. We'll take a vote. Tricia
Aye.
and Andrew.
Aye.
And I am I, and I have the
Excellent.
motion passing unanimously. Good work, Jeff and
Thank
John.
you so much. One other thing that is out now, but we won't have to discuss it at the moment. But RTE did send the paperwork for the purchase orders for all the lighting and in preparation for getting ready for once we do own it. So if you could look that over, I forwarded it to Terry. If you don't have it, Terry, I can re-forward it to you. But basically, it's just a number of different purchase orders. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different companies and 6 different purchase orders that amount to about $42,000. So we want to go over it, but we've gone over it, and today we actually approved that part of it. So it's really just to have you look it over, and I'm happy to sit down with any of you individually or whatever to discuss anything you see in it. So just so you know, it's there.
Jeff, to say that again, those purchase orders are to purchase what?
So once we own the lights from Eversource, we want to move as quickly as we can to actually purchase the individual lights that go on each pole to replace them. And it takes about 6 to 8 weeks from when we order them to when we get them. So if we could have all that in place so that we can just hit the ground running, we'll have you look it over now and just get in prep for it. We've gone back and forth with Real Term Energy and sat down with each light and figured out what's needed and what different things. And so they've created a list and created the purchase orders for all the different equipment, and that's what arrived just a few days ago, and it works out. And then John's on there looking questions.
John?
So I think from the committee's perspective this afternoon is whether or not we should authorize the payment of those or sign those contract, the purchase orders, and begin purchasing the equipment now rather than in a month after we have the signed contract from Eversource. And that's really a discussion between the select board members. As Jeff just suggested, we believe that those numbers are reasonable and fair, and we agreed that we should recommend that they be allocated, the funds be allocated at some point. But we don't actually have the final contract. So it's really a discussion. Do you want to spend that money for the equipment to replace the lights now, or do you want to wait until after we have a signed contract with Eversource?
Didn't you say the contract could happen in 2 weeks?
Theoretically.
It could, yeah, or it could be a month. We don't know from Eversource. So, the question is whether we should take that chance or whatever. But with talking with Eversource, they said that once Eversource has gotten this far along, they've never seen one fall through. So it's like we will probably be owning the light. So in preparation for that, it's just a matter of whether you guys feel comfortable putting money up to start purchasing the fixtures before we actually own the fixtures. That's just a technicality that falls on you guys' shoulders, whether we want to do that or not. And we can just wait and otherwise order it when it is. It just pushes the timeline of when we can actually put the lights up, and we're starting to get into December timelines if we're not too careful. So
Well, our previous vote was on a document that Eversource provided us, and what we're doing is accepting it, correct?
Correct. But it's still not formal until you sign off the regular paperwork or whatever. So, but I think, yeah, it's a technicality of how you guys see it. So.
Well, I can do that tomorrow if need be, but Tricia and Andrew, any thoughts on their wanting to do additional purchases through RTE in advance of having the actual concrete signed agreement with Eversource?
Barry, do you have any concerns about accelerating that?
any
I mean,
concerns?
given that the grant that is going to be used to make these purchases is really can only be used for that purpose, I'm not sure that there's any real risk involved, because it's either we give the money back or we wind up with a bunch of streetlights that we can't put up because we don't own the system.
Right here.
Yeah,
Right,
the
right.
grants for 48,000, and what we're requesting in these purchase orders is $42,948.25. So
I think it was
so
Jeff
still
brought up
under that.
risk, so I don't see it as a worry either.
Yeah,
Tricia?
I'm not worried
it's not a
about
huge
it.
risk, but I'm nervous one always, so that's.
I'm
Tricia, any-
like Jeff, I always get nervous about stuff like this if the ink isn't dry. But it sounds like the money is already allocated from a grant, right?
Correct.
And you want to get this done as quickly as possible to avoid having to do maintenance on these lights or switching out the actual bulbs themselves in the thick of winter. Is that my
Exactly.
understanding?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
well,
Yeah,
I'm open to moving and approving that this evening if you wish.
What's the motion
I
you're
think-
looking for, Jeff?
That's a good question, John. What are we? What's the motion we're actually?
We move that the select board approves the authorization to move forward with the purchase of fixtures for the streetlight conversion program.
So moved.
I'll
That's why we bring John on.
It has been moved and seconded. We'll put it to a vote. We'll assume Andrew has moved it, so your vote, Andrew,
Aye.
and Tricia,
Aye.
and I am an aye. It passes unanimously, so we got two of them dealt with for you tonight.
You guys are amazing. That's great. I'm really happy. We'll move it along. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
You
you,
bet.
guys.
Jeff.
All right, John, you're on. You're up next anyway. Cowell Gym estimates for improvements, painting and a fence.
So I submitted to Terry 3 bids for each of those 2 different projects with my recommendation of who to choose for those. I don't have that in front of me. Oh, I didn't make a copy, but you should be in your packets.
Yes,
Yes.
we have them.
Mhm.
We all have them, I think.
Yes.
John, I just have a couple of questions before we make those motions.
Sure.
On the first one for the painting, any idea why the bids came in so widely different?
No, and I was afraid to ask, frankly.
Well, is the first one 5,000 or 15,000? I couldn't tell with your handwriting.
It's $5,790 or something like that.
5,650?
Yeah,
And the others were like 3 or 4 times larger than that.
correct. And I did verify with Brian McHugh from Renaissance Painting that quote is still good, even though it's originally dated July 7th. We had communications issues, and I talked with him verbally last week, and he replied that in fact it's still good.
And what the other follow-up on that is, Terry, maybe you can answer this, is if his bid came in under 10,000, is it still a prevailing wage job or not?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Yes.
And he understood when he bid that it was a prevailing wage job?
He did. He said typically he pays his employees at least that amount.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure of that before we accept that
I
number.
understood.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
the other bid, were you recommending the higher of the 2 for the second one?
Well, I know I wasn't necessarily recommending it. It was more a question of whether or not paying an extra $1,800 for a local contractor is appropriate, or whether or not we should stick with the low bidder. Both have good reputations. I was really just putting that down as a question mark for myself. I have no opinion. I mean, obviously the low bid is $1,700 or $1,200 or $1,800, $1,300 less. So in theory, we should go with the low bid.
We have the option to not go with the low bid?
I don't know. That's why I have heard in the past that you can choose to use a local bidder that may be higher, but that was hearsay, so I don't know if that's in fact correct.
Barry, do you have any wisdom on that?
We asked for bidders or proposals?
Proposals.
Just written quotes.
Okay.
I would recommend the low bid because otherwise, it would be contested. We've had that happen on 2 occasions. You have to have really good reason not to honor the low.
Okay, I'm fine with that. They both have, he has a hasty, the contracting has a very good reputation also.
So I would move that we accept the Renaissance painting bid for can somebody name the amount there? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah,
5,650.
And that we recommend the first bid. Can we give the name and amount there?
Hasty Fence, 6,000.
840, I
840.
think.
That's an 8.
My
All right.
apologies for my hen pecking.
So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. We'll put the matter to a vote. Andrew
I
and Tricia.
Aye.
I am an aye. Passes unanimously. Good work, John.
Thank you, John.
I'll notify both winning contractors tomorrow, and the painting may be able to begin within a week or 2. Fence may take a little longer just because of the backlog.
Okay.
great.
Great work.
Thank you
very
for your
much.
work on that, John.
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay, Missy, we've still got a lot to do before we get to you. Are the people you were saying you were waiting for to come on? I would say, I hate to say it, but we could be an hour away from getting to you if we don't take you right now. Would you like?
No,
to
there's other 2 members that are on.
Okay, so you'd like to proceed?
Sure, if you're ready for us.
Okay, I'd like to move to old business item C. I'm sorry, item E, which was the Pocket Park event use request. It was regarding Christmas lights and the placement of the Christmas tree in the front of the pavilion at the Pocket Park. The answers to our questions were given. They are simple white lights, no staples, zip ties, if anything, on the posts of the pavilion. The request was clarified for the tree to be in front of the building. So I would assume that would mean the gable end that faces Deerfield Street. And the reason was that it was level ground. However, there's no ground there. There's sidewalk and stone or slate, so there's no way to anchor the tree at that location. And just to the right of that, down towards Deerfield, is a reasonably flat area of grass where that tree could be front and center still, but properly anchored to the ground, which seemed to be more prudent to me. So, Missy, did you have any other input than that kind of quick overview you'd like to mention first?
No, just the fact that I thought that there was enough room in front of the pavilion that faces Bridge Street that we would be able to put a tree in some type of stand and be level on that rock. There's stone slab there.
Well, that was my thoughts. Andrew or Tricia, any comments?
I'm in
So-
agreement with you, Rick. I prefer the tree to be not blocking access to the pavilion and be in a place where it can be properly secured.
Tricia?
Yeah, I agree with both of you regarding that. I actually looked at it today, and I know there's those rocks, that rock surface, like big pavers, for lack of a better term, right in front of the gabled end on the Bridge Street side. But if you go to the right of that, so towards Deerfield Avenue or Deerfield Street. There's another flat area there that could be used and wouldn't block access to the pavilion. So it would be my preference to not have it blocking the main access to the pavilion. With regards to everything else, with the garland and stuff, thank you very much for providing all the answers to those questions. It's a lot easier to make a good informed decision when we know exactly what's happening. So we make sure that no one is going to be upset or offended by what happens. Not that you would ever do that intentionally, but you can understand that's why we asked.
Absolutely.
And also getting it, understanding that it's a group of you and you have businesses to run, and it's difficult to gather everybody together to take it down. I think your explanation was reasonable for trying to get it down before January 12th, that week of the 6th through the 12th or whatever it was. I think that sounds good, but I am concerned about the location of the tree. So I agree with them. Is there a way to move it over there to the right? Do you know where I'm talking about? It's like to the right of where those big rock pavers are. What do you call those? Like a
They're
platform
just
sort of.
slate. It's just slate
Yeah,
there.
slate.
Slate slabs, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that you could place it over on that location, sort of at the right post that's holding up the roof line?
So you want it to be on the Deerfield side of the pavilion?
It
The
should be on
Deerfield
the
Street
it should
side.
be on the grass and not right next to the pavilion, but over to the right. So it's you know, in its own space. The pavilion is not going to be harmed
Obscured.
by by the putting up or taking down of it. It'll just be, you know, in the grassy area down the way
And
there.
I think it's flat enough, don't you?
It's actually flat right down at the corner of the sidewalk, Deerfield Avenue sidewalk and Bridge Street sidewalk. It's that much off a flat. I mean, it's so close to flat. I wouldn't put a level on it, but it certainly could hold a Christmas tree and allow stakes to be able to secure it to the ground, because, you know, we shouldn't just stand it up out there on flat grass or slates without it being secured somehow. So something to the right of the pavilion, it seems to be the wish of the other members, including myself. Missy, can you make that work?
Absolutely.
See, I had one other question. Are you planning to put lights on that tree?
Yes.
And what's the power source? How will the lights be connected to the tree?
Last year we used Foxtown. Diner supplied us with electricity, so we're planning on doing that also this year.
So you have a way to get
Yes,
the
we have a
power
way
to
to
the
get
tree
electricity.
without creating a hazard?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't want to have like a cord running along the ground that people would trip on or whatever.
No.
Okay.
We had it all pretty much lit up last year also.
Great.
It was
Okay.
closer to Foxtown last year, though, if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't it? It was almost right next to the building.
Well, it was basically right where the pavilion is now. We were there.
It's in the gravel area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what is the plan for making sure that it's secure and the cord, because that's quite a distance from where the tree we think should be located to Foxtown. How you're going to secure the cables?
Probably, I mean, we hadn't got that far yet, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, probably from the building and then probably up around the pavilion and then back down. So we use as little grass as possible.
So closer to the right-hand front post of the building, as Andrew suggested, rather than down closer to the sidewalk, to shorten the distance between the power for the garland.
Yeah, so probably between like, because there's 3 columns.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're thinking in between the first and the second column.
Yeah, I guess I'm having trouble picturing how you get a power cord from the Foxtown to the tree. It sounds like it's gonna be running across the pavilion itself. Sounds like Kate is gonna clarify this for me.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna attach it to the building, so tell me how it's gonna work.
So I have an idea. I've done this before previously. So we could place it wherever the best placement is, that's flattest. And then you can run a super long extension cord, but you buy those, we can source those, they're like little stakes. They're like, what do you call them? They're like a lawn stake. And then you can stake them down every so many feet. And then that kind of lowers the tripping hazard. And then you would kind of almost make like a right angle. So you would go from the tree around the pavilion and then over to the power source. So it creates like a straight line. And then if you stake every so many inches, then that stays really secure in the ground. And that really lowers a
So the
tripping hazard.
closer to the pavilion on the right-hand side, the better.
Right. That could, yeah.
Fine with me.
That could be the solution for this.
Well,
Okay.
you're also going to light the garland, right, on the posts in the building itself? Is that right?
Now, Missy could definitely speak on that. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You're having lights on the garland that you're putting on the building, right?
Right.
Yes, there's already going to be power up into the rafter area, the truss area.
Right, that's why I said it would come from the building around the pillar and then up and down and around the pillar again. Yeah.
Okay.
So as less grass will be used as possible.
Seems
Sherry,
like
do you have any concerns about this?
No, just a question of whether there'll be snow on the ground and how easily it'll be to secure the cords, but that's up to Mother Nature.
All
well,
right.
it's going to happen before before Thanksgiving, right?
Yes. No, that'll be the Friday right after Thanksgiving.
Yes, we've had snow then before, but maybe not too often. So.
When you do these things, do you have to get the fire chief to check it for fire hazards or anything like that? I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, never have in the past. I'm sure he's probably checked it, but has never brought anything to our attention.
It wasn't attached to a building before, right?
It's never been attached to a building, no.
Well, I mean, like the lights you're going to string onto the pavilion itself. That hasn't been done before, so.
I'll talk to Herb.
Actually, it would be the Shelburne chief. Or no, wait a minute. That
No,
is
it would be her.
that is the-
Yeah.
that's right,
Shelburne
that's-
Falls Village.
Forget about the village district. Okay, so do we have a motion? Any other questions? Andrew or Tricia?
I guess I will move that according to the information we have now, that we approve the idea for the Moonlight Magic event and use of the Pocket Park, with the tree being placed to the right of the pavilion, and having the fire chief review the electricity plan for powering the lights on the tree and the garland.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll bring it to a vote. Tricia
Aye.
and Andrew?
Okay.
I'm an aye. It passes unanimously. And thank you, Missy, for your understanding and help in getting us to where we needed to be to make a decision.
Thank you. I do have one question.
Fire away.
Will the picnic tables be remade through the winter time, or will they be removed like last year?
I believe they'll stay in place because they weren't covered last year, but Andrew,
Okay.
do you have a better idea of that?
Terry, do you know if we had any plan to take them out? It seems like they could stay where they are, yes?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think they'll stay. That was my thought as
Okay,
well.
was just curious.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for doing this. It's gonna look beautiful.
Thank you.
Andrew and Tricia, thank you for letting me move that item forward. They had several people here to speak to it, and thank you for letting me move that.
Sure. No, that's great.
Okay, Tricia, back to liaison reports. Emergency management, I think you were at.
Oh yeah, that. Let me scroll back up. Okay, hold on. I gotta find where my notes are. So I did Joe, right? I did Angel. I did Sylvia. Okay, great. So emergency management, as you know, Tom has left town for the next few weeks. He is going to be back earlier than expected. I think originally he thought he was going to be back on the 20, I want to say 1st or the 20th. Yeah, 21st of October in time for that tabletop exercise. Now it's looking more like he'll be back in town on the 17th or so. I don't know, he may love the Blue Ridge Parkway enough to stay longer, remains to be seen. So in his absence, John Taylor has agreed to act as, emergency management director if needed. I have a note from him about that too. Before Tom left, he submitted his grant proposal, which we'll discuss later in the agenda. He also sent the list of people involved in the tabletop exercise, I believe. And I've also talked at length with our regional coordinator from MEMA about the upcoming exercise and training requirements, and we'll talk about that later too. I think that's it for my liaisons.
Okay. I have a few things to mention. The Franklin Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board meeting for September got canceled. Then pushed off to the next scheduled meeting, which is November 21st. So nothing on that front. The Police Services Advisory Committee was trying to gather a quorum for a meeting in August, and it ends up it'll be scheduled for this Wednesday, fully remote. The Zoom link will be posted, or was posted today rather. So that's in the works. Almost all of our police department members, including the chief and his staff, some of our fire and emergency EMT people over the weekend attended an alert training at the Mohawk High School Saturday and Sunday, an extensive process. The chief was very pleased with the thoroughness and the amount of information that they gleaned in 2 weeks or in 2 days, 10 hours each day, as I understand. This was a post-active shooter threat process. They previously had done an active shooter training, and this is for after the active shooter threat has been eliminated, what happens next? And that was the focus of the weekend. And it, man, they had a lot of people there. I went up to exercise around the track on Sunday, and they had a lot of attendees from all around. Very happy with that. Lastly, the Children's Advocacy Center Awards Breakfast was held on the 13th. Shelburne was well representative with the town administrator, the chief of police, several of his officers, and myself were there to attend to see our Detective Jenkins receive the Champion of Children Award. It was a wonderful, large event. It was a fundraiser as well simultaneously, and held at GCC. And I was very proud of the town showing up, having our own table to be there to thank Tucker personally and watch him receive his award. And it's an important one for sure. He puts in the work, and it's not a not a fun thing to do or a pleasant thing to do. So that's all I have for police liaison reports. We are up
Thank
to,
you.
thank you. We're up to old business, knotweed, Old Greenfield, that we settled last week and is, as Andrew mentioned earlier, tomorrow night, the Conservation Commission will bring up the two requests that we were hoping to get before them for the cover and smother approach to the knotweed and the spray approach. Due to the efforts of several people, this came about and we got those requests in properly so that they Conservation Commission can in fact, or is in fact bumping their regular monthly meeting up and doing one in halfway in between. So they'll meet tomorrow night and take those two up for us. They were properly advertised. I saw them in the recorder myself. So it'll be in their hands to see how we proceed from there. But the community members that stepped forward and our highway department who did yeoman's work to get this far are to be credited for sure. And other than that, I don't think we have anything on that subject at this point. Any thoughts or comments yourself, Andrew or Tricia?
No, just
Okay.
see how it plays out.
Great. I see Cynthia has her hand up. This isn't a public hearing. I can't have you speak tonight. I'm sorry, but you are the person I'm trying to thank for your work, because if you hadn't done it, it wouldn't have been good for any of us, the landowners, the town, and your connections and diligence of hours that you put in to get this to this point. A lot of it goes to your thanks, and certainly Jeff, our highway department superintendent. So thank you for that. And we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
Rick?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering on this topic, I'd like to in the, at another meeting, not right now, but when we learn about this process, to maybe help with future projects, to have a plan in place for what to do in these situations. I don't know if that's something that we need to do as a select board, or Andrew, you can do as liaison to the highway department to help Jeff develop a good plan for, knowing what to do so that we aren't feeling like we're trying to catch a runaway train when something bad happens, A, and then B, hopefully have something in place to try to prevent it from happening again. Is that something that we can do?
Well, I think we've been reassured by Jeff that he never wants to go through this again. And we know the source. It was from road scrapings in town that were reused to deal with erosion problems. Yes, is it time for something formally? Perhaps, and he can deal with that. But the process to get it over the line, to get it to where we've got it this far, there's so many moving parts that it's ridiculous. And I think we would need to have the help of an expert to get us there. So we certainly can bring that up at another time.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think there's sort of two issues. One is the protocol around what created the problem initially, as Rick mentioned, of reutilizing, fill that was contaminated. We can certainly develop protocol around that. That's the easy part. The harder part is figuring out what actually works against knotweed in various different kinds of situations. So I don't think there's one protocol that we can develop there, and we probably have a few years of experiment and observation before we can kind of come up with that part of the plan,
Good point. Both of the approaches require multiple years of attention. So
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the second part, I wasn't really thinking, it was just like what works on knotweed, because I think you're right. It is something that we're learning about, and definitely the science is evolving in that regard. I was thinking more along the lines of knowing like having all the ducks in a row with the permitting, because to make sure that all that permitting is correct, because it seems like it's not just Concom, but then it's also maybe needing this vegetation management plan and needing these other things. And so I just want, I guess, the highway department to know that we support their efforts in looking for that, or whatever group needs to get a vegetation management plan together.
As you pointed out, that's something for another time. This was about the Greenfield Road specifically, and we know where we're at on that. So
okay,
bring that forward. Takes us to item B under old business, Tom Williams and Tricia, I believe you're going to address the request for ARPA funds for a project or two.
right. So let me get back to right, the ARPA funds. I have that here. So we were thinking, Tom had brought this to my attention, that maybe what we could do is get a, why am I not finding this page? I had it here. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Sorry. Oof, here it is. Sorry about that. An AED that's a defibrillator for town hall or another public location. I actually went to town hall today and looked at where we might be able to put it. I talked with, since Tom's out of town, I talked to her because I was over at the fire district with Chief Guyette, and just about like where it could go, what would be the best place for it. We know that they have one at the Buckland Town Hall, but it's only available during the times when Buckland Town Hall is open. He didn't recommend having it outside, exposed to the elements. So I went, and at first I thought there was no place we could put it in the foyer area of Town Hall that's always open, of the Shelburne Town Hall. And I was thinking that it might be a good, underneath the bulletin boards, there's quite a lot of space, and it would be fine to have it there, and it would be out of the elements, not particularly obvious. And I know, Terry, you had mentioned a little bit of fear about the cost, a possibility of somebody stealing that. And Herb had said that about one that was at, I guess, the school by the football field. And he thought by now it would have been gone, but it's still there. It's been there for several years. And it would be a little bit, I would think, difficult to get it off the wall and not look obvious from the foyer of Town Hall. But it's about $2,000. It's just something for us to think about as another possibility for the ARPA funds. And then the other idea, in talking to John, well, John, you're here. I went over and looked at Cowell Gym today too, about that space. There's a small room on the east side of the Cowell Gym that could be made available for emergency management use for some storage. But there's, Tom wanted to make some minor modifications to it. And that same room, the exterior wall, it's where the driveway, you know, that driveway that goes up and around the back and then back over by the pickleball courts. Who needs to call them tennis courts anymore? That wall also needs some exterior work on there. So we were thinking around $4,000 maybe. John, I know when I sent the email, I hadn't spoken with him, but we have spoken since. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to just let John chime in about like the extent of the work that would need to happen on the exterior part of the Cowell Gym right there. Because it isn't so bad. I was expecting it to be a lot worse.
Actually,
Depends on your perspective, I suppose. So the sill, from the sill up to the siding has been rotted away. There's water penetration coming down off that driveway. But to me, that's only, you know, that's a sub part of the entire project that I have outlined in my 2-year proposal. And right above that, there's a door that goes to nowhere. I think I've shown that to Rick. That needs to be repaired at the same time. It should be repaired at the same time. So it's really a question of whether or not we wait for town funds to do the whole thing, or if you apply certain amount to at least fix the stuff so it's weatherproofed. I would recommend that the 2 plexiglass windows that are in there also be replaced at the same time. And then it's a matter of looking at the whole project and taking it as a unit as opposed to one-offs. But it can be done with the idea that in going future, whatever is done now has to be integrated into the second phase.
Yeah, that was in your proposal that you previously put up, and we, the select board, reviewed with the finance committee. You split that into 2 phases, and that was in the next phase for next year.
Yeah, and to be honest, that was a swag. So whether it's going to be $15,000 or 5,000, I had no idea. I was trying to put a placeholder in there.
Yep. But so Tricia, it was again before your time. It is in the plan. It's gone through the finance committee and the select board, and favorably so. But we picked actually with John's itemization of order of importance, the things that need to be dealt with for phase 1, and that's the painting and other stuff that's happening already, and preparation of that added on structure, 2 stories, is in phase 2. So that's something that will come up next. But
So we can't use ARPA funds for parts of it? So parts of phase 2?
it didn't seem prudent to do just enough of what you wanted to do. And we have actually other ARPA fund things that depleting ARPA by 4,000 or whatever it would be may not make sense now with the other things that are raising their ugly head, which will come up later in tonight's meeting.
Okay. I just wanted to put it out there so we're all thinking about it.
Yes, you did that, and I appreciate it.
Do you have a later spot to talk about ARPA, or is this the good time to talk about that? I don't see it on the agenda.
Nope. I will be bringing that up, as I think I sent you a separate email with some photographs, and that will be coming up later tonight. And I think the ARPA funds would be an appropriate place for it. So we're going to talk about the problem at the information center and the potential solutions, which ARPA, according to the ARPA regulations, the priority projects that it listed, that would certainly be one of the top 3 uses for ARPA funds. But we also didn't want to nickel and dime the ARPA funds until we got your report on the replacement of the deck, et cetera. So that was kind of on hold until we heard from you on that. So I think you're right. We might want to have a specific ARPA discussion at our next meeting, and we'll just bring up those elements in between this evening.
Okay, yeah, I don't have new information about the deck. The person I was hoping to get a quote from is still out. But I do have resurrected some estimates that I got last spring on the pocket park. And so I think the 25K that I ballparked for the pocket park is still the right number, that based on those conversations I had back when I was pursuing other grants for the pocket park. So that number I will stand by. The deck, we had put a placeholder number of the remaining 25,000, but I don't have any more accurate specifics on the deck at this point.
Andrew, I don't remember that. We had 61,000 available. We approved 10,000 for the pocket park. And then there was discussion about, you thought maybe another 25 would be needed to do the landscape work that you were talking about. Well, we didn't vote on any of that.
No, I didn't say we voted on it. I was just saying that that number is still,
But you did the math and said we got 25 left. Actually, we have 51 left.
oh,
After-
okay.
After the 10 that's already been approved.
Right. So I was talking about the 51, that there was about 25 in each bucket there.
There's a big bucket of 51, I think, so far until some decisions are made, but let's
Right.
get that on the agenda and discuss it. As I said, the information I will bring to you at the end of our meeting in the correspondence section will also have an ARPA ramification there as well. And
Okay.
that's our job, is to think it through and find the best ways to spend it. But Tricia has brought those other items to our attention, and any other comment on that, Tricia? You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Right. Okay, transfer station, the proposed changes, we've got some information today. Kind of late coming in, but it is on the agenda for proposed changes. We have another change being requested that I think I'll just run by you quickly. The initial numbers, I think, for bags of a different color to avoid the people at the transfer station having to sell the stickers and so on, looks apparently not feasible financially, and that we still need to do a lot of work on trying to solve those specific problems. The one I would like to run by you, rather than make wait 2 weeks regarding the transfer station, is the one of the members of the Charlemont Select Board. You asked earlier actually about the lease, our lease from Charlemont. We just re-signed like 2 meetings ago, I think. So our lease ends, was it annual, Terry?
No, I think it's longer than that. I don't recall.
Maybe or something. So we just renewed that a couple of meetings ago. So one of the select board members wrote to us, kind of broaching the idea of making the bottle return a district, more of a district first come, first serve. So as you know, at the transfer station, near the exit on the right, there's a separate shed where returnable bottles and cans can be donated. They've been donated to the Mohawk Trail Sports Program. It's been handled by the Mohawk Athletic Association. This person, Valentine Reed, a member of the Charlemont Select Board, says that due to the lack of volunteers and commitments, there's times when the shed is overflowing and you couldn't put another can in there if you wanted to. So he floated the idea, looking for our sense of receptiveness to it, about having it a first come, first serve for any Mohawk Trail or Hollamont School District program. The goal being to solve the occasional overflows. My 2 cents before I hear yours are that this has been since a decade or more for sure, going to the Mohawk Trail sports programs through the Athletic Association to support the longevity of sports at Mohawk. I certainly wouldn't want to give them an opinion until we received some feedback from that association as well, but I wanted you to at least be aware of that request. What I didn't know, and maybe Terry does, is whose shed is that? Is that part of what we're leasing from Charlemont, or is that not clear? Why would they think?
May have been a shed provided by the solid waste district. I'd have to, or it may belong to the Mohawk School District. I'd have to go back through the minutes and find that out.
I think we
But
should.
it has been a chronic problem in terms of getting them to empty it.
Well, I think at the very least, we'll owe them the courtesy to bring it to them and say, this has been proposed. What's your feedback, before we made any decision on whether we would support such a recommendation. Would you agree with that, Tricia? Andrew?
Yes, I do. I think we should alert the athletic association that there's a problem there, and if they're not able to solve the problem, we would open it up to other groups to help us solve the problem.
I think that's what we should do as well.
Is the problem just that they don't have staff to empty it when it needs to be staffed?
They're
Or
all
is-
yeah, they're all volunteers. So when somebody says, hey, the shed's full, somebody gets together, usually it's one person who shows up. I've watched it several times, and separates and organizes and loads in their vehicle and takes to the Redemption Center in Greenfield, I believe, on Deerfield Street. And then the funds go towards Mohawk Athletics. So yeah, I think we should just bump it to them, get their feedback, and put off a reply to this inquiry.
I agree.
Anything I missed, Terry, on the other thing about bags or progress?
No.
We don't have enough detail yet, right?
No.
I just have a question about the bags, Terry, because my very rough math, if we have roughly 1,000 households, if those households were using an average of 8 bags a year, it would take 5 years to use up the 40,000 bags. My guess is people use more than 8 bags a year, but I don't know what the average bag use is in Shelburne.
I order 25,000 labels annually. And it usually lasts us just about a year before I place another 25,000.
Okay, so
And the
that's
cost of a label versus a bag is significantly higher. So we'd be looking at like a $9,000 to $10,000 investment in bags versus much less for labels. And just the shipping charges on that many labels, and where we store them, and they don't come with ties. It's just so many little things that make it less attractive, but hopefully I will have affirmative answer at our next meeting.
Great.
Thank you,
Happy with
Terry.
the answer, Brent?
You're
You're happy
welcome.
with the answer, Andrew?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I don't know. I mean, you can tell us at the next meeting what the pros and cons are about bags versus labels. You know, I don't know if there's a downside to labels, but they certainly seem more efficient in a lot of ways.
Well, the downside was what we were trying to correct. The single tenant or the single transfer station attendant having to sell them in the middle of.
No, but you can sell the labels at the market or whatever, just
Right.
like the bags, yeah.
Our solution isn't clear yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be at some point. Old business, item D, solar array installation at the highway barn. You mentioned that the panels had come in and we're waiting on Eversource to give the final go. And I see here tentative start 10/21/24.
Yes, we have the approval of Eversource's interconnection agreement. We have the building permit, we have the electrical permit. So we're getting closer.
Those all came in then. So the
Yes.
10/21 is when PV squared can get to it.
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks for that clarification. Old business, item F. This was the request of Christopher Curtis for the Deerfield River Watershed Association. That's in the wrong place, sorry. That was bumped by Terry a couple of meetings ago to the Open Space and the Conservation Commission, which were the boards and committees that the Deerfield Watershed Association recommended they thought would be appropriate people. And we hadn't got an answer yet, and it's on the agenda for the Open Space Committee meeting tonight, which began 25 minutes ago. So I think this one we can pass over as well until we hear if they found a representative. Unless anyone knows more about that than I just stated. Not hearing any. Old business, item G, ICS 100, the Incident Command Center Training. Tricia.
Okay, thank you, you guys. So at the last select board meeting, we had talked about staff who are going to be involved in responses to emergencies or just being prepared for events, and those events could be expected or unexpected, but the ones that we were specifically talking about, Tom and I, were the unexpected ones. No one had raised an objection to people who were working for the town and their jobs would require responding in an emergency, like folks from the highway department, specifically, Jeff, and there were only a few people that were involved in the SEMP. And then I got an email from Rick saying that Rick and Andrew felt uncomfortable with it and that we shouldn't go ahead. So I thought it was better if we talked about this, all three of us, to find out what it is. And before we do so, I wanted to make sure that, we're clear about what actually ICS is, because I think one of the things that you mentioned in your email, Rick, was that the course material seemed best suited for people who already had a background in emergency management response, like fire, police, and ambulance. But actually, ICS 100 really is used for anybody, for all types of organizations at all levels of government. It's used in small to very complex situations. It's used not just for emergencies, but for planned events like parades, gatherings, Moonlight Magic, for example. I'm sure that the fire chiefs and even Oktoberfest, they utilize an ICS structure to manage those events. And the reason is because it is scalable up and down, horizontally as well. It allows for a coordinated response among various jurisdictions and agencies. So highway talks to the incident commander is allowed to handle what's important to be handled, and frees up everybody else with let me put it in the words of our the guy from MEMA, is that it teaches how the command structure works and ensures that the incident commanders aren't being burdened by things that another member of the team is responsible for. And so, naturally you would be like, well, the way that everybody knows what their team is responsible for and what they're supposed to do as individuals is because they've taken ICS 100. It helps to, and I'd like to give you an example. So there was a church fire in Spencer, Massachusetts. A thunderstorm went through that had lightning, and one strike hit the First Congregational Church in Spencer. And they found some smoke, and then they found that there was indeed a fire. It ended up becoming a fifth alarm, and the building was a complete loss. So Main Street, which was Route 9, was impacted. That blocked traffic and businesses. The housing authority was next door, and that nearly caught fire. And a cell phone tower was in the steeple, and so the area lost cell coverage. So that's one example of a lightning strike that's just in a regular storm that caused this massive impact. And the response required the help of the town manager, the public works, the building department, fire, obviously, from multiple jurisdictions. And so all those people needed to know how the structure worked. And so when emergency situations like that escalate to kind of what we might call disasters, public works agencies are shoulder to shoulder with fire and law enforcement and emergency medical systems. it's important, in fact, you might say it's vital that everybody is competent in the ICS way of doing things, because that's what the fire and law enforcement and EMS do on a daily basis. So for our work, the people involved in what would happen with Shelburne would be the 3 members of the select board, the fire chiefs, the police chief, Board of Health, Animal Control, the superintendent of wastewater. I guess Dan Florial is still working in that capacity. All the members of the EOC team, the Mohawk superintendent, and the facilities manager, the public information officer for us in the highway superintendent, who actually needs this anyway for continuing education credits. So most of those people that I just mentioned are already trained, like the fire chiefs and the police chief. Tom said that I believe Fred Bohr already has the training. And so, and when Tom and I talked to you folks about it last week, we were in agreement. So I don't understand what happened over the week that, and I wasn't involved in it either. So this is a little bit problematic.
I'll try to answer that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the problems with putting things on the agenda a half hour or half a day before the meeting is things like this. And that's kind of what started us in the wrong direction, I believe. It came without advance access to the details to us, and you guys presented it to us. And on the surface, it seemed to make sense. You said it was like an hour program. You know, should we allow these people to take that test or process the training during work hours, et cetera, et cetera. And we kind of just shrugged our shoulders and said, okay, because we didn't know what it was about. So then after the meeting, you sent the link to it. And actually, Terry took one of the sample tests. I went in, looked at it. It turns out it's a couple of hours. It's 5 separate subjects. And I poked through them all. And I found them to be bureaucratic, make busy work. And I couldn't see that we would make this a requirement to volunteers that are hard to come by anyway, to currently man the emergency management center and so on. It just seemed too big of an ask to make it a requirement. What I intended, what I thought we said to you was that we shouldn't be making this a requirement. You can make it a suggestion, and anybody that wants to have at it, fine. But I couldn't see anything in what I saw that would make it any easier to deal with a lightning strike on a church that hit a cell phone when we have trained, experienced people who certainly are going to step up and do the right thing to make it happen without this particular training session, which seemed complicated at best. Terry, any comments?
I reviewed the material and I would estimate probably 3 hours to read through it and take the testing. And where I sit, there's no way I could do that during my work time. And I just felt like, first of all, I hadn't received a list yet from Tom as to who he was recommending take it. But that's when I reached out to both Rick and Andrew and said, you really should take a look at this material, because I don't have a clue of how broad to send this out. I feel like it's a huge ask. Rick responded to me saying that he agreed. Andrew, I don't believe, had a chance to review the materials in detail, but said that he trusted whatever Rick's opinion of the testing was.
So that's how it came about, that we just wanted to let you and Tom know that actually going and looking at what you were asking or expect or desired to ask that litany of people you just listed off to take that test, that changed my mind in a heartbeat. So yes, there's people in positions that may want to do this. You mentioned the chair of the Board of Health. That's fantastic. And others, but to make it a mandatory for volunteers in the Emergency Management Center and things like that, I think we'd lose a lot of people. So that's all I wanted to convey to you after hearing the feedback from Terry and what I saw myself, of course. So that's how we got to where we are, which is what you wanted to know. Andrew, any comments?
Only that, well, two thoughts. One, Tricia, that the example that you posed about Spencer seemed more to go to Rick's point than yours, that from the way I heard it, the agencies that you described, if that were to be a Shelburne event, would already have ICS training. And so they would, as Rick said, do the job as they were trained to do and utilize that ICS training. I think going beyond that circle of professionals, I agree with Rick. I think it should be a voluntary ask, not a requirement.
Okay, so two things. I will say I understand that, and there are other incidents. This is just the one the MEMA coordinator provided, the one in Spencer, that can show you how a simple thing can escalate really fast without anybody knowing. And the volunteers are, they know that this is something that they can do. As far as Tom knows, they're all very motivated, and I don't think they will mind taking it. He and I did, we had experience thinking it was an hour, and when I checked the FEMA site, I did see that it was 2. I've never gone over any time that FEMA said the class was going to take. So my apologies for thinking it was only an hour long, because I misguided you in that aspect. However, when you're involved in an emergency response, it's really important to understand, sort of where your lane is. And I think that having a discussion, first of all, amongst yourselves that excluded me maybe was not the right way to go with this, that it was about a specific subject that I knew about and Tom knew about. And then I got an email saying that my other 2 select board members had an opinion about it, and therefore we shouldn't go through with something. In my opinion, we should have just, instead of telling me what you thought outside of a select board meeting that you guys had decided, it should have just come back on the agenda for this week, which is why I asked Terry when I received that email, please just put it on the agenda for this week, so that instead of thinking that we had made a decision and then coming back and being told later that you guys had decided something else, was a little bit off-putting and not what I had expected. So if there was a problem, I would think that we would just talk about it again in the next meeting.
I'd like to reply to that if I could, and I understand why you would feel that way. When you guys presented it, you said Tom will send a list. I think he even said tomorrow, for Terry to send that request out to. And I felt I owed you an explanation that, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to put that on hold. So I didn't want to leave you and Tom thinking that as soon as that list came in, Terry would be sending out the request that the select board had approved you being asked to take this test. So it definitely needed to be revisited, and that's why I'm glad it's on tonight's agenda. But that's how that unfolded. It wasn't a slight of you. You guys brought it to us without advance information for us to make a a decent decision on. And when we were able to, as you said, you were even confused about the time it took to do it. When we actually got to look at it and go, whoa, this isn't anything what the picture that was painted for me. So I'm not ready to send that letter out. Terry, you have a question or a comment?
I apologize if you felt slighted, Trish, but at no time did Andrew and Rick discuss this. I sent it out to each of them individually. They replied to me individually. And that's how Rick's email was formulated after receiving feedback through me.
And Patricia, I would just add to that and to say that my relative lack of involvement in this was only in addressing the interim question that Rick mentioned, which was whether or not to send it out to this list. And my only response was not, I didn't review all the material. I just said, Terry and Rick have reviewed the material. I trust them in the direction they want to go, and that's where I left it. So it wasn't like we had a big discussion about it. In fact, we had no discussion about it.
Right. So it's on the agenda tonight. You know where we got here. Would you like to have you and Tom come in and make the case for it again, or do you want to debate it right now? Because I think you know where I stand, where Terry stands after reviewing it. I can see where you would look at it and say, oh yeah, it says 2 hours, I can do it in 2 hours. You probably wouldn't even need to read the questions. You could write the answers.
Well, they are full of bureaucratic jargon. I will give you that. But the
Yep.
important thing is to understand the structure, which is really important. And I actually even spoke with the MEMA coordinator to see if there was some truncated version that at least we could get, just to get people sort of on board with the concepts of it. And in terms of, you know, he's like, they didn't really have anything like that, and he could do the training himself, but it would take 2 hours, and you'd still have to take the test afterwards in order to be ICS 100 certified. I think that asking the volunteers to do this, they're motivated, they understand the importance of it, and if they're going to be in the EOC, they really need to have it. I don't have a problem asking them to do it. I think what we want to do then is to say, if people want to take it, they can take it. And if they are town employees who want to take it or need to take it, that they can do it on town time, that they don't have to do it on their own time. Would that be something, a different thing that we could do, that if an employee would like to take it, they can take it on company time or town time?
Can I make a suggestion? I worked for the nuclear power industry for 10 years before coming here, and training was a huge part of our job. But we actually had hands-on drills where we learned by example. A lot of people aren't good at reading 150 pages and taking tests, especially when the terminology is so foreign to those of us just in our role doing our jobs for the town. But if you were to tell me in an emergency, Terry, this is your task, I'm on it, I'm there, but I don't necessarily need to know or have a certificate saying that I'm trained. But I didn't know if there's some sort of a mock training that you could offer employees, just so that we would have a better understanding of how we would be used in an emergency situation.
No, that's a good point. And actually, you know, the tabletop exercise is going to reveal a lot of this. My hope was that if everybody were, and Tom agreed with this, that with everybody being ICS trained, we wouldn't have those problems in the tabletop exercise, because everybody would know exactly what they're supposed to do, what their required tasks are already. If we just throw everybody into this situation on October 24th and no one knows anything about what they're supposed to do, we're going to be dealing with that too. So the exercise will definitely have a lot of learning experience from it, and the hands-on stuff I get. it's just that, you know, for 40 years, they've used this system and they improve it all the time. Like the training I took a few years ago wasn't good. I had to retake it, and it was different, and it made a lot more sense. They learn from each of these experiences and know how to do it better. So it's really, it's tedious. I get it. I understand that it's bureaucratic stuff and you have to answer all the questions, but you can go through it and get it done. I had said regarding the comprehensive emergency management plan that one of the things that helps it work really well is when people are trained and they know how the whole system is supposed to work. And what happens is the chiefs get distracted or get pulled into other parts of the response that they wouldn't normally be getting pulled into if the support teams below the incident commander know what they're doing. It just slows down the response and it can make things worse. So I'll give you one example that I know of was during Katrina with the governor of New Orleans when she was asked, the governor of Louisiana, excuse me, what do you need? And she said, I need everything you can give me. So think about that. The whole country was thinking, how do we help this situation? And the people in Alaska are like, well, I got 500 parkas. You want those? So part of the training actually teaches you to be really clear about what it is you need, what tasks have to be done, what the strategy is going to be, who's responsible for each of those things. And then you realize that saying, I need everything you've got isn't the right response. But
I see that though as the job of the people who are already professionals at it. I see it as Tom, the chief, the highway superintendent would know what his area needs would be. Having that certification or trying to pass the certification test for the highway superintendent makes no sense to me at all. So although I see the logic, the people at the top who are going to make those decisions are already schooled in that, like yourself and Tom, and asking volunteers who are going to man the phones in the emergency management center to know all that stuff. I just don't get it. But
here's a maybe a compromise here, Tricia, is what if, building on what Terry said, what if we just go do the thing on the 24th and see what we learn from it? And if you come away from that feeling like, oh, this would have gone so much better if everybody had ICS training, let's have the conversation again and see, say, what did we learn from that exercise? But that seems like a place to test drive these different theories of how people respond to situations.
Yep, sure, that's fine. I think it would be enlightening and
Yeah,
to see
let's
what
see what
happens.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
it sounds like we'll learn
Okay.
a lot at it.
Yeah.
Would you, in the spirit of compromise, would you be open to the idea of a motion that said if any employee would like to take the ICS 100, they can do it on town time?
Terry, do you have any concerns about that?
No.
I don't
Just
have
we have very little time outside of our jobs to devote 2 to 3 hours.
I don't see our highway superintendent having a 2 or 3 hour block of time to do it during business hours, but
Well, you don't have to do it in, all at once. You can do it in chunks. As you noted, it's got different chapters and it's possible to do it in separate chunks. And there's actually an entire, part about public works. And I would argue that Jeff, it would be really, really helpful for his job just in general because of the structure and how flexible it is, that it would actually help him. There's a whole section on public works. Hi.
I don't have an objection to that, Tricia. If you want to make that motion, I'm happy to second it.
Okay, so I move that if a town employee would like to take ICS 100, that we allow them to use town time to do so.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. We'll vote. Tricia?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Motion passes unanimously. So we'll,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I think, you're passionate about this, and that's why I'm glad you're in that slot. And then going and looking at it, and I said, I never thought I was stupid, but reading this, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, would I want to spend time trying to figure out what all these foolish acronyms are and things and try and get through this? I'm not going to need that. So I didn't feel like it should be a requirement to me and perhaps others, but as long as it's voluntary, we were down the road. So I
So
appreciate
can we
you.
say, oi, the acronyms, and then move on?
All right. Again, a late comer, old business. I'm making it item H, which is not on the agenda, but MVP process you wanted to comment on, Tricia. Something about the planning process has been completed.
Oh, yeah, and they said we're the town of Shelburne Falls, so I'm gonna reply to them and get that fixed on our letter, because they left letters off and everything. I don't even know, nothing that we submitted said town of Shelburne Falls. They must have pulled it out of the address.
Yeah.
I have lost my H. So that was nice. I just wanted you folks to know that that was there. I think I lost H somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't an H. I mean, you just did this late
Oh
Friday.
yeah, because I just sent it. Yeah, I just got it. So I thought you'd want to know.
Yes, but the letter wasn't with it. So the email.
Technically, it's any other business.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
where things come in at the last minute. It's under any other business.
Okay. Well, we're down the rabbit hole with it anyway. Let's wrap it up. What you sent was an email that said, this Emily had sent to you folks, congratulating you on completing the MV process. Attached is the town of Shelburne's MVP designation letter. Please keep this letter, but the letter wasn't there. So
Oh, sorry.
we didn't have enough to discuss it anyway. So let's look at this in 2 weeks.
The letter
And-
was like the third attachment in on Tricia's email.
When it got forwarded,
But it was just a congratulations that we've been
Okay.
designated.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, if there's
Anyway,
any,
Rick, look at it this way. You saved a piece of paper.
if
I
there's
did
any,
put it in your packets under other business, I thought, but maybe not.
maybe
Oh,
I,
I think so.
Well,
Let me
maybe
look.
it came
I've got
in
too
too
many
late.
screens open.
Okay.
There is another thing under that for emergency management, but I didn't think it was the same as this. And if they're related, then that's my bad. So we'll get to it at some point then.
Okay.
All right, new business. Street use permit for Moonlight Magic. November 29th, they want to close Bridge Street from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. And in your packet, you'll see the parade or street use permit request from the West County Arts and Culture for Moonlight Magic. It was reviewed by the police department, and the chief has approved the request and given them a price for the estimated cost of 2 detail officers to be on hand to make sure everything is going smoothly. Any discussion or comments, Andrew or Tricia?
I love Moonlight Magic. This is awesome. I have no comments other than that.
Great.
That's my only question, Rick, is whether they can get the whole street cleaned up and back in working order by 9 o'clock. That seems early when you consider ending Moonlight Magic and then having all the vendors pick up their stuff. And I don't know. I was surprised that they could get that all done by 9 o'clock. But if that's what they're asking, sure.
That's what they asked for in their application.
All right.
And maybe it's only about the closure of the street and that the vendors will still stay beyond that. So all this is for the parade.
Okay, I
the
got you.
parade-
Okay, yeah.
parade and the closure of the street
I
itself.
would move to accept their request.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, put the matter to a vote. Andrew,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
and I am aye. Matter is approved unanimously. New business, item B, Pocket Park. Distribution of religious materials. Tricia.
So, yeah, I just happened to be in town the other day and some folks had set up on the corner of the Pocket Park with, like right in front of the sign with the rules. They had a display with religious materials, and full of pamphlets and things like that. I just wanted everybody to be aware of it, and if there's a concern, we address it, and if there's no concern, then more power to them. But I didn't know if everyone knew that that was happening, and I guess it's happened with some regularity, I guess, right, Terry?
Yes.
So, I mean, the rules cover grills, cooking, smoking, vaping, alcohol, dogs, canopies, tents, signs, postings, flyers, and then, of course, there was the scheduled use thing. I don't know if they are sort of there on their own schedule that happens to be always Tuesday at 3 or something like that, without, so they're a de facto scheduled use. But anyway, I wanted us to talk about it and see if it's an issue or if it's not an issue, or we just kind of keep an eye on things and make sure that they're not sort of violating anybody's right to their own religion.
So you said you saw this on one occasion, and we would probably want to see more to know if it's a regular thing.
Yes.
So I went to look myself. The sign of the rules is inches, literally, from the sidewalk. So if they were in front of the sign, they probably were on the sidewalk and not in the Pocket Park. Would that be correct?
I don't know that it matters either way. They're both public spaces.
Yeah, that's what my thought was.
I mean, you can't block the sidewalk. If they had been putting their materials in the sidewalk in a way that blocked pedestrian access, that would be an infraction. But in terms of the park, I think of it more, I mean, it's sort of an issue because the park is small, but if it were Central Park in New York and you had Mormons and Adventists, handing out their pamphlets and proselytizing to you, or if they were in the subway, I mean, these are all things that happen to me when I go to New York, is I get proselytized by various people, and sometimes I engage and sometimes I don't. But my understanding is that that's a First Amendment right that they have. So it's my prerogative whether I want to engage back with them or not.
You mentioned a sign or something, and I would think our planning board may need to take another peek at our, I forget now, temporary portable signs bylaw. People are sticking signs up there regularly, and it's an eyesore. It's especially if we do get that landscaped and make it more beautiful than it is now. And then we got all these people sticking their signs in it and putting up sandwich boards for businesses down the street that aren't visible. That's legal, but is it legal to stick them where they are? We don't have anybody to shepherd it. I think I called it an attractive nuisance at one point, and that's pretty much these little routine things is what it is, but it is what it is. And in this case, I don't see that we have any sway in it, Tricia.
Okay, I did want to just clarify, it wasn't a sign that they had. Well, it was like a tripod type of thing, like an easel kind of with their information in there and a sign attached to it. So it was sort of a portable sign, but also like kind of a sandwich boardy type of display case. But Terry, I believe, had, I don't think you heard her answer when you asked about it being more than once that they've shown up.
Yeah, this is regular. I don't know if it's Tuesdays, but they had received permission from the owners of the lot years ago, and I think they're just operating under those same premises. They're probably not aware that the town now leases that property.
Well, is this anything that does need to be dealt with in any way at this point? Is it a regular specific time, specific day every time?
I believe it's 1 day a week, but I'm not outside of town hall much.
I've never seen it myself, so.
I mean, even if they were doing it every day, if it's a temporary sign that they're dragging around with them, is it something we regulate? Or if they left it there, that would be a different matter. But if they're just, you know, trundling their sign around with them while they proselytize, you know, it may be unattractive to those of us who don't like being cluttered up with signs, and I'm one of those people, but is it something to regulate? I'm not sure, you know. What's your thought?
I don't think we have regulations in our current zoning bylaws in that regard, so I don't think we have any teeth if we decided to try to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the First Amendment issue is a fair one.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
a different matter. The other issue you raised last meeting, if we as a town were putting up religious symbols, that would be something for people to object to. But if people come into the public square and with their religious symbols, that's their business as far as I can see, you know, as long as they're not permanently fixing them to the property.
Okay, good. We don't
Okay,
have to take any action. It was just, you know, raise awareness amongst us.
thank you for that.
Sure.
New business, item C. Tricia, you're up again. MVP action grant, re-expression of interest due 11/1. We have that
How
in our.
did I get on here so many times? Okay. So the expression of interest is one step in the MVP process that allows the applicant to get feedback on their potential projects. Last year, if you remember, we submitted an expression of interest for a culvert study. We got feedback on it from the MVP program that said, yeah, we're not really interested in culverts. And then they dangled the carrot in front of us of, you might be on this special list of towns that won't have to match anything, which was a big deal for all of the small towns. And then, so we decided to think big because that's what our regional person told us to do, and came up with this really awesome plan for the Dragon Brook to do a climate resilience plan for Dragon Brook, which we discussed in the spring and decided to go ahead and try to meet the deadline. We knew it was going to be really tight and difficult, and we weren't able to meet it. So we didn't actually apply for a grant at the last application time. Part of the reason we picked the climate resilience plan for Dragon Brook as the project was that it could potentially address the inland flooding at the Bardwell's Ferry intersection, that one where the bridge now failed. So the MVP grant, even if we had received it, we never would have been able to prevent that bridge failure in this short period of time anyway. And we knew that it wasn't going to be able to fix it until probably the second year of the project. And this year, the MVP, I don't know if they're still putting a lot of emphasis on these nature-based solutions to inland flooding problems, which was the other reason they were really looking for something like that because of all the flooding that happened in July of last year, that was something that the state was really interested in funding. One never knows what MVP is going to put as what they're really looking for until like when the grant gets announced. So it's a little bit of a, who knows, we'll try our best situation. One of the things, and I included so you could review all of the action items that were identified by the MVP process. One item was a resilient drainage plan for the town. And that was the number one of the high priority items. That was the one that got all of, the majority, the most votes by the people who were there at the planning process as what we really wanted to do for the town as a whole, a resilient drainage plan. The only thing I can tell you about this year's application process is that they really, really, really want towns that have never done an MVP action plan or an action grant they really want us to apply. I don't know if that means that they really, really want to give us money, but they really want us to apply. So this would require a little bit of a reset to do an expression of interest, and we can send in more than one expression of interest to MVP by November the 1st. And see if this is something that we would want to pursue. I'm not comfortable making this decision kind of solo, so I wanted us to be able to talk about it. What do we really want to do? What do we want to accomplish for the town? I mentioned the resilient drainage plan because I think that, first of all, in addition to being the number one priority identified in the process, it's something that addresses a lot of the problems that we're facing now and we keep facing all the time with our roads and other physical infrastructure being damaged by these crazy climate changes that we're experiencing, with the freeze-thaw cycles being much different than they were in the past, causing a lot of problems with our roads. Massive volumes of precipitation flooding our streams, and that our physical infrastructure not being equipped to handle it all. And so we're having bridge failures and culvert failures or inadequate culverts. So I was thinking that might actually be a better long-term project instead of just the one for a particular swath of Shelburne. We could look at Shelburne as a whole and devise a whole drainage plan for it. But I included the rest of the priority actions that were identified in the MVP process so that you guys could look at them too and see if, there's something else in there that you think, hey, you've been on the select board longer than 3 months, so you probably have other insights into, where there are some things that maybe one of these other priorities would actually be more helpful. So I'm open to those ideas and would love to hear your thoughts on it.
The thought I had in reading through the list of options that are identified there is the ones that intersect with the highway department should be done in consultation with the highway superintendent and not commit his resources to projects that he doesn't know about, so he should be in the lead on any project that impacts the work of the highway department.
Yep, totally agree. Is there any project that you think would be more beneficial than others.
Well, I guess I don't really understand. If you did a townwide drainage plan, does that mean you write a grant to hire a consultant to produce that plan?
The MVP grant would be to say that we would, it would be to pay for the consultants to do the plan, yeah. But we
Okay.
wouldn't have to, you know, we would apply for the MVP grant to do that. Potentially, it could, you know, depending on how we write the grant, it could go out to say, we're going to hire, this is to pay for the engineering team to come in and devise this whole hydraulic and hydrologic plan and drainage plan for the town and come up with solutions. So it could be like a 2-year project where they come up with solutions. So then we next have, now we've got all the engineering we need already done for all of this. And then we can apply for other grants later, including another MVP action grant to pay for those particular areas that need to be addressed. So we don't have to like do them piecemeal. A lot of times what happens with these, especially things dealing with water, if you don't really look at the whole picture for where all the water's going and you're just dealing with like, how's it flowing through this one particular problematic culvert, you're really not solving the problem completely because you're not dealing with the upstream problems and you're not dealing with whatever you're creating downstream from there. So the resilient drainage plan would really encompass all of those aspects. So I think it's, in my mind, it seems like a really good project to put forward. Like I said, I don't know what they're going to be interested in this year. They may just say they want to eradicate knotweed on all riverine passages, you know, that might be something that, you know, this year is what they're excited about. I can't really tell you. That's why I think if we apply for 2, that might, you know, then we can kind of get feedback on both of them.
My
Well, I
take,
think, go ahead, Rick.
my take is the number 2 that you say is the highest priority in the development of the plan would make sense. I think tonight you're just asking for, is there general consensus of support for applying for the MVP grant this year before you did the work of writing it and putting it together and putting it before us later, correct?
Yes.
And the answer from me is yes.
Okay. So you want to do your preference would be my second option of the resilient drainage plan?
Especially since we've got a couple of years of work ahead of us before there's a new bridge fix at the one that just went out.
Right. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm fine if you want to pursue that in consultation with the highway superintendent and just.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that he knows what's going in. And, you know, I think to me, it's sort of a watery analogy to a pavement management plan. Where, you know, I think what I would begin with is what do we know now about our hot spots and our weak spots? And if we then hire a consultant to develop this comprehensive picture, you know, we can fit our own indigenous knowledge into that picture, and the highway superintendent can, you know, better understand what priority projects he wants to pursue, you know, in terms of going after grants to replace this culvert or rebuild that road or whatever. Would be informed by this sort of larger context of a drainage plan or a pavement management plan or those kinds of things. But you know, but I think he's starting with some indigenous knowledge of where the challenging spots are, you know, and then working them into that kind of plan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the way the MVP project works too is they the whole process, they always want to have as much collaboration as possible. So it definitely wouldn't be like, one person just showing up and writing things down, what they see, but they would have repeated conversations with the town people that know the most about these areas. And we would leverage also that culvert study that FERCog did. I think it was 2019. Anyway, so that was something that when we were looking at the culverts, when we were applying for the initial grant, that was very small because of the match requirement. That was something we were going to do. And, Mark Shippey and I had talked about the Dragon Brook project a lot. That's sort of where the idea came from. And so I would definitely loop Jeff in. I just haven't, I was just like, this just came out, and I've started thinking about it. And Jeff has really hit the ground running with all these other problems. I didn't want to throw this other like, hey, this is like a really cool idea. What do you think? So I will do that, but I wanted to make sure we all agreed that that was something we wanted to do, because I didn't want to throw something else on his plate at the moment. And definitely work with him on how this could work best for him
Yeah,
too.
and again, I emphasize the in consultation part, because if Jeff's response is my plate is already full in terms of that deadline, I would take him seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And keep Andrew as liaison tightly in the loop, please.
Yep.
Do that. So I think you have your answer and the caveats proposed. So happy?
Yeah, so I want to do that one. So should I do both or just the one, the resilient drainage plan, and then maybe something else will come up. We'll see.
Of those two, the number one choice with the entire group seems to be the one to focus on. And
okay,
like they said, don't shoot small. If there's no match, go for it.
Right, might as well. All right, thank you very much, you guys.
Okay, we are down new business, item D. Laura, I see she is on, Laura Willis. There are 3 liquor license related requests from the Shelburne Falls Pub and Brew. Since people watch this recording and some are on tonight, I will read them off real quickly and then give Laura the floor.
It's going to be Joe Ray.
Oh, okay. Hi, Joe.
Right.
I'll turn the floor to you in a sec. I'll read them for you.
All right.
The requests are, number 1, permission from the local licensing authority to serve alcoholic beverages on Sunday to complement the Sunday brunch menu, which would begin at 10 a.m. rather than noon. So it's a liquor service with traditional Sunday brunch mimosas, that kind of drinks, starting at 10 instead of noon. Number 2 is Sunday, September 29th, the Adams Fall Motorcycle Run. Request to serve alcoholic beverages in a roped off area in the parking lot that's adjacent to the outdoor patio. This request was approved last year. It is a benefit for veterans and children's
children with heart problems.
Gotcha. And the third request is New Year's Eve request to extend business hours on New Year's Eve until 12:30. Last call for alcohol would be at midnight. Kind of a no-brainer. Who wants to celebrate New Year's Eve at a place that closes at midnight? Yay, bye. So those are the 3. Joe, any comments?
No, that's what we're looking for, those items.
Okay, and before I asked Tricia and Andrew for their comments. I did, as the police liaison, contact the chief, ran them all by him. He has 100% behind all 3.
Thanks for doing that, Rick.
So we have the authority to extend hours on Sunday. That's not a state thing.
The state does allow 10 to start at 10 on Sundays, but with local authority approval.
I see. Okay. That was the only question I had.
Okay. Any from you, Tricia, any questions?
That is just for, so you want to have the brunch buffet coming back forever. That's right, right?
Yes,
Okay,
it's just for
Got it.
Sundays.
Sundays.
yep. Okay, I'm good with these. I move
Uh,
to, do we have to do them separately?
No, we can
I
do
don't
them all.
see. Say-
Okay, I move to accept the Shelburne Falls Brew Pub request for permission to serve alcoholic beverages on Sunday, starting at 10 instead of noon. Also to serve alcoholic beverages in a roped off area in the parking lot next to the outdoor patio for the Adams Fall Motorcycle Run, and also to extend their business hours on New Year's Eve until 12:30 a.m. with last call at midnight.
Second.
Matter's been moved and seconded. We'll put it to a vote. Tricia
Aye.
and Andrew.
Aye.
I am aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Joe.
Yeah, and we thank the select board.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Okay, new business item E, Tom Williams, Tricia. You're up.
Okay.
This one being
Uh,
the emergency
just-
management regarding the emergency management grant application. That's an annual item.
That's right. So yeah, because Tom's not here. I'm sorry you guys had to listen to me all night. So he's put forth the application for CPR AED training. That actually will be opened up to some town employees or other people because it's for a certain number of folks, and he's got less than that right now. And I have the number somewhere, but it'll take me forever to find it right now. So sorry. More literature displays for all of the interesting preparedness stuff that he has, clothing for the team. He found out that the propane tank that they need for the emergency management generator actually needs a storage compartment type of device. So that's also added into this grant, and then some office supplies that they need for the EOC. So I think that's what that's all this is for. So we just need to vote on it to say that's okay, and then it can be submitted with Rick's signature.
The amount is 2,700. That was the same as last year, I believe. I don't know how many others, but it all seems in order to me, and I have no problem with it. Andrew?
That's fine. I move that we authorize Tom to apply for that grant.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Matter to a vote. Andrew
Aye.
and Tricia.
Aye.
I am aye. Passes unanimously. Okie doke, we're gaining on it. New business, item F. Patriot assessing software, cost to upgrade and upload to the new server. You saw the explanation of why this was requested in your packet. As you know, the servers were updated, which means a new OS, which means the old stuff doesn't work or can't be supported, and it's triggered the need for the assessor software. I think they have an Assess Pro Patriot server migration is the request. Think it's $2,000 even to do this, and it seemed like they need it to work, and it won't and can't be supported. If I got buy the new, there's no tech support for it since the change, so it's not a we just want more money from you approach, I think. Terry, did I get that close to correct?
That is correct. Both the assessors and myself recommend implementing this new software. Karen has $1,000 that she can contribute through her expense account, and I can charge the second 1,000 to the computer account. And if we run low toward the end of the year, I'll request a transfer of funds to cover that deficit.
That's reasonable. Terry, is that This is actually just the $2,000 is a fee for a change request in the order in the original contract. Is that a normal fee that they charge for a change request?
This was kind of unanticipated. This is actually the software company saying, if you want to buy our updated software that's compatible with your new server, it's going to cost you $2,000. So we
Okay,
didn't
'cause it-
know at the time that it wasn't going to be compatible.
Right. I guess so. I guess my question is because on the number on the thing prepared by Jason Basto of catalystgov.com,
We'll
he's
be
calling
paying
this,
directly to the software company.
yeah. So I just didn't know if that's what they normally charge for a change request. So anytime something like this comes up, it's going to be a flat out, we're doing something different. It's going to cost you $2,000 just to change it. Cause I think that's what he was trying to say is it's already paid for within the services that they can do. It's just, anyway, it's a technicality. You have to
Yeah,
get it done.
Northeast IT's charges to upgrade the server is included, but this is the actual software company selling us the updated version for 2,000.
Okay. Well, I think this is a great, what you've arranged with Karen is excellent, and I move to proceed and pay this fee to get you up and running.
Thank
Andrew?
you.
Utilizing the funds as Terry has described.
Utilizing the funds as Terry has described. Exactly. Thank
Great.
you.
I will second.
Moved and seconded, matter to a vote. Tricia?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
I am an aye, passes unanimously. Okay, any other business? Our next regularly scheduled meeting is October 7th. And I have one other item that came in at 4:30 that I need
I
to.
have one too, but go ahead. Mine's
All right.
quick.
I'd like this one to be quick. It may not, but I'll read it as fast as I can. Here's the deal. The town clerk brought this to me, as I said, about 4:30 this afternoon, after discovering a deadline, I think it was September 30th, for the select board to take in a formal vote to approve the early voting hours for the upcoming state and presidential election.
So moved.
I
believe-
second it.
Okay, I should read at least.
All right.
I've emailed it to you both. Did you see
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
Yes, Saturday,
Oh.
October 19th, and days after that, February, Friday, November 1st. It has to have 1 day per weekend, which it looks like he has, 2 hours each day, and 4 hours total each weekend. So he's got a
So-
couple Saturdays that are
So-
4 hours. It's good.
So the motion is to approve early voting hours as provided by the town clerk in his communication of September 23rd. Is that correct? Is there a second?
I second.
So we'll move the matter. Andrew,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
I'm aye as well. It passes unanimously, and it's 8:28, getting punchy, I guess. Okay. Under any other business, Terry, you said you have something.
Mine's good news. I did receive the Community Compact Award for $10,000 to fund the police wage and classification study. So,
Yeah.
Yay, congratulations. That's
thanks.
wonderful.
You sure you don't want more time?
No.
Thank you. That's great news. Okay. This last one, I'll try to make as quick as possible, but we need to come to some sort of consensus. This is the correspondence from Rachel and Steve Cooper, excuse me, regarding 77 Bridge Street and our Visitor Information Center. And you have in your packet the note that they sent to us. In a nutshell, Their plans were to remove the shed that was attached to the visitor center and their building, make it a seating area for tables, etc., and then restructure the building for a retail business. After getting apparently the shed down and so on, they've come to the realization that that's not feasible, that they are going to have to probably demolish the entire building and start from scratch. So they got a row to hoe ahead of them. However, this was a very gracious tip of the heads up, I'll call it, from them. They put up a plywood section, a series of plywood across where the shed was, because it's a very steep drop off. If you've gone up and looked, they did the right thing to put that up. They feel, as good citizens of the town of 25 years, that that's not too attractive at the entrance to our community, and they want to put up a more of an official fence, temporary, to get rid of the hideous looking sheet of plywood. So that's part one. Let's deal with that separately. Anyone have a problem with authorizing them to put up a safety fence?
I have
None?
no problems.
Okay. We don't need to vote on that, Terry. We can just advise them that that's fine with us, or?
Yes.
The second part is that they suggested you might want to take a look at your building. So I did, and I sent you both photos over the weekend. I mean, it's obvious the foundation is in big trouble. It's been jury rig patched before with some concrete blocks, and there's holes and spacing. That whole area that you saw in the photos, or if you've gone and looked at it, the plans of the project are to fill that in, which means that would become underground. And they're saying you might want to fix that before we bury it. So their project is clearly delayed, and they're going to have the architect start over, or get an architect for the new design of the new building and go through that process. So we have a window of opportunity to go in and repair that foundation in anticipation of that. Well, I mean, it needs repairing anyway. It was just hidden. It was out of sight, out of mind. And now that we've seen it, we know that the integrity of that foundation needs some attention, obviously, as well as the siding, which has some decay and rot that needs to be addressed. And that can be done in any particular level that needs to shore it up and stop water from infiltrating behind the clapboards and so on. The situation is that we own no land. So to do that, to even just take some stucco and cement and try and fill in the holes, you'll be standing on their property. They have given us full permission to go ahead and access that site and their land to go ahead and make these repairs and do it while the timing is right, as opposed to putting this off and dealing with it perhaps in the spring when they're ready to start more work on that property. So I wanted to bring it to you tonight. I spoke with Steve today. He's very pleasant, wants to do anything he can to help in this regard, and has given us permission for full access. I was surprised that we had no land. Literally, the border of their land and the outside of our wall are one and the same. There's not an inch between them. So he's given us permission to go in there and work and fix it, and I think we should pursue it. I mentioned earlier that this might be a perfect place for the ARPA funds. The ARPA funds are, when I looked it up, what was the original purpose of it? They listed a bunch of things. The top three were supporting local business and economy. And I don't think anything does that more than our visitor center at the moment, in the absence of a association or anything that's now defunct and not working. So I think it's something that we should consider for the ARPA funds, unless you have some better ideas, which is why, Tricia, I didn't want to go down the road of looking at 4,000 or 5,000 here when we know we're getting tight on the ARPA funds, and we have no idea what it costs to reinforce and prepare to be buried that section of the foundation of the visitor center building, and maybe and separately itemized quotes on repairing the siding to the point to eliminate water infiltration at the very least. So I wanted to run that by you and get your feedback and comments on that situation.
I agree with you, Rick. I think it needs to be dealt with right away. And ARPA funds would be a natural way to do that. So I would support that. I don't know if Terry has contractors in mind to get estimates from about the scope of work needed to secure the building, but I can tell you I've used Neil Martin to do foundation work at my house, and he's a skilled tradesman and man of many trades, actually. So there's one name for you if you're looking for people to provide some scope on that.
If it's under 10,000 for either component, we wouldn't need to bid it, or does it matter, or where do we stand as to pursue some more information, Terry?
Well, I definitely will contact Neil and have him take a look at it. I'm wondering, I believe building inspector might want a structural engineer to look at it. I have no idea. I'm not really versed in this, but I can make some calls tomorrow and see where the best place to start is. I know Neil was working on Deerfield Ave on the Rod and Gun building. So if he's still local, I'll go see him.
And did a beautiful job too. If you haven't been by, all the way up 3 floors, it's they did a great job.
Well, I completely agree that we should get this done as quickly as possible, and definitely use ARPA funds. That makes a lot of sense. We can find an AED elsewhere if we need to. So I'm good with that. I just want to get it out there. There might be some left over, and then we know if we've got $2,065 left, we know what we're using it for.
Okay. I would put that, even if we came up with a, let's say we think we have 51,000 or 25,000, whatever that number is left, even if the repair of the potholes decking came into that mix, this is a much higher priority. It's a town structure that we need to preserve. So it would take a back seat to that. And apparently we aren't having a lot of luck getting people to give us numbers on the deck project. So I think we should jump all over this and possibly get it resolved before winter.
I think the deck project is also potentially a Community Preservation Act eligible project that we could pursue if we were going to rebuild the whole deck. If we're just going to repair it, it's probably not eligible, but just repairing it in places probably wouldn't cost that much anyway. So we could take the first approach if we need immediate repairs and just pay for that ourselves, and then pursue a rebuild in a year or two, through using CPA funds or something. Would be one way to do that. But yeah, so I would say I agree. I think this is a higher priority for ARPA money.
Terry, sorry to put another thing on you, but if you'll check with the building inspector and reach out to this other fella and any others that come to mind, and see if we can get some numbers to reconsider. Next meeting. Thank you.
Technically, that building is actually called the Village Information Center, though many people incorrectly describe it as the Visitors Information Center. Which is its practical purpose.
Right.
I had no clue. Thank you. Okay. Public comment at the discretion of the chair if time allows. I'm exhausted, but I'll take a minute or so from anyone who has something they would like to say. Cynthia. You are muted. You are muted.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'll try to make this really brief. I just wanted to let you know that although I've not been active in the Japanese knotweed issue most recently, because I had been involved, I've been copied on a lot of communications, and I thought I should really let you know, just so you're prepared, that there's a chance that the spray, even if the RDA passes tomorrow night with the CONSCOM, there are a couple things that have come to my attention that might slow down the ability to spray due to additional permitting possibilities. So I'll just kind of leave it vague like that. Also, I heard from Randy Prostek today that he went down Old Greenfield Road on his way home from work to Charlemont, and he saw that some of the project that's already been underway with the creation of the culverts, one culvert has already disrupted a lot of the knotweed contaminated soil and kind of buried the knotweed. So in some places it might not even be feasible to do the spray because there won't be leaves available to spray. And then the third thing is that maybe that, oh yeah, so if that's the case and it becomes necessary to use the smothering technique, I was able to reach out to Doug Saigan, that New Hampshire expert that wrote the New Hampshire Best Management Practices, and got additional recommendations from him on the smothering technique, which I did forward to all of you. So maybe you've had a chance to look at those, but it's probably a little bit different than what the protocol had been. And it might be worth taking a look, considering that he's done a lot of this kind of thing. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll gladly ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Rick. So moved.
Second.
And voice vote. All say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you,
See
everybody.
you soon.
Right.
Thanks,
Bye.
community members, for being awesome.